Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is Steve Crane. I am joined by Nate Hale. This is episode 208.
4-year anniversary.
4-year anniversary, 52 weeks in a year. Times 4, 208. Congratulations. As Jake used to say, we've made it. Remember that?
He said that like
every week. Fucking every week. We made it. Like another week. Like something's going to happen. We got Josh Bentley back on the show this time, joining us in the garage, thanks to no extreme weather this week.
That's exactly right.
2 weeks ago, we had him on, and we wanted to have you up here, and we're going to do this featured cigar, which is the Montecristo Espada Signature. We'll get into that a little bit, but we did the Montecristo Espada Oscuro.
Correct.
From afar.
Yep.
And we talked about that. We had a great podcast. We have you up now to do this one, learn about it. It is limited edition, and I'm excited to share it with everyone and what we think about it. Nate has not smoked this. I smoked one today simply out of research.
Okay.
Because we were worried about what we wanted to drink with it.
Very good, yes.
So I did smoke it. Didn't tell Josh that until right now. But I am excited to share it with you. And before we do that, I'm going to probably make a rookie mistake. Hit the video. And
let me say hi, Willow.
See, I told you.
Willow is watching. I just got
Willow.
A message. She's smiling. So
nice.
Yep. And and to Ray, just fresh out of hair and makeup. So
they can tell.
Yeah.
They can tell. I mean,
that
was a good use of Patreon money for that hair and makeup guy.
There you go.
Yeah.
Straight from my payee.
I could use a little bit more powder on the head, but it's just a little glare. But I do want to thank you guys out there, sponsors. You're one of them here. Tinderbox at East in Columbus, Ohio. Want to thank you guys. Check them out. They do carry the Montecristo Signature Espada, or Espada Signature, excuse me. That is in stock, as well as the Espada, as well as the Espada Oscuro, which I think we are running low on at the moment. Is there any back order issues on the Oscuro right now?
We'll talk about that. Yeah, I think there are some
it's across the
Nicaraguan,
board. Yeah. Across the board, there's issues
orders
in our industry and every other, but it is regularly in stock. And we talked about the Oscuro 2 weeks ago, so check out that podcast. That would have been 206. But I want to thank Tinderbox at Easton. Big event coming up. Smoking 10 event, number 9, 2022. So March 19th. It is a Saturday, and Josh will be there.
I will be there with bells on.
Featuring actually to the Tinderbox, not only a brand new cigar for the VIPs, but also a brand new cigar to the shop.
Yep.
For the General, which was a highly rated cigar this last year.
Yes, that's
top
correct.
25. Not going to give it away, but yeah, we've got some surprises for everyone. That's going to be Saturday, March 19th. If you guys haven't gotten your ticket yet, the VIPs are almost sold out. The general admission is still available, but you can call.
How can they get that?
I'm glad you asked, Josh.
Good.
As you can see on the screen, I don't have it. I should have had that decal. Son of a bitch. Sorry, I cursed. Willow, sorry. Oh, man. All right, we'll try to keep that to a minimum until later on. But no, you can call Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. You can stop by the shop, or you can call 614-475-7872. You can look them up. Also, message them on Facebook. You can message me. You can message the podcast. You can reach out through Instagram. Email is eastontinderbox@gmail.com. Look us up. Get a hold of us. The VIP is running very low. It's $225 plus tax. That gets you in at 10:30 a.m. And then you have the general admission, which is $135 plus tax, and that gets you in at 1:30. You get more cigars, some higher-end cigars for the VIPs. You get brunch as well as the lunch, and maybe a drink sample or two. And the general gets 10 plus cigars, gets in at 1:30, and you get the lunch buffet. So, and there's also a killer sales table. Yeah. VIPs get first dibs at all that. So sorry, general admission. Some of that stuff might be sold out by the time you get in the tent.
Special raffle
prizes, small special raffle for the VIPs, and then a major raffle for everybody. So really, really excited about that. I hope you guys can make it to that. Moving on, Altadis USA. I don't want to do all the ads for so long, but Altadis USA, Josh worked really hard on this. They've got us the banner behind us. We got the tablecloth. We've got all the swag. We got the cigars. We get some of the first, dibs on some of this stuff. We got that cigar we're talking about for the VIPs. We've got that actually. We're going to be reviewing that coming up hopefully in the next month or so with Josh. and that's a new one. I'm not going to give it away, but it's a brand new one from Altadis, so we're excited about that. And the continuing sponsorship. You've been amazing getting that all done, and thank you everyone at Altadis USA. Some exciting projects coming up from them. Also, BS Cigar Company, the gold and silver are available. The gold is made by Plasencia, which is a reoccurring company manufacturer on this podcast for the last month or so. In fact, we had Jonathan Herring said, "Oh, good, you're trying something from Plasencia tonight." Been rolling through that pretty well here. But yeah, BS Cigar Company, the gold is Plasencia, silver is Espinosa. Eric Espinosa will be in attendance himself at the 10 event we were just speaking about. Looking forward to having him back in Columbus, Ohio. He's always a treat.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, he's been on the podcast before. He's always fun.
Longtime supporter of the Smoking Tent event.
He is. He absolutely is. And we've got a brand new cigar from him.
I was going to say something about that, yeah.
Which is a celebrity endorsed cigar, which has been making some waves on some of the blogs. So
someone was seen smoking one of those at a football game Sunday.
Yeah, fantastic. Also, you guys, patreon.com, and we'll move forward here, but patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. You guys are fantastic. What are you laughing at?
My buddy Tim thinks I'm wearing my wife's shirt because it's pink.
We'll get to that here just momentarily here. Patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast, monthly donor or sponsorship you guys can do yourself. We appreciate all that help. Or Venmo @Bourbon and BS. That's how this bottle got here. That was from Kristen who donated on the Venmo. And she actually wanted this bottle for the podcast sometime. So
cool. Thank you, Kristen.
That. So as I mentioned, if you want to buy us a bottle or whatever, you can do it through Venmo, do the one-time donation or contribution rather, and that'll work very well. Last but not least, some exciting stuff here with buyjack.com, and that is where we get to what Nate's got on. You got the pink. That is no longer available, the pink shirt. That's for the National Breast Cancer Foundation. So we raised $110 for that, and then now we've got a green version, which, Josh, you're waiting on.
Yep.
Nate, you're waiting on. Yeah. I've got one inside, not wearing it tonight. But that is a green one's $30. $10 is going to go towards St. Baldrick's Foundation, which they are aware of. So trying to touch base with them to get them on at least for a short spot on one of the shows coming up between now and St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, cool.
So any of those green shirts, like a Kelly green shirt. I've got another one from When the World Hands You Some BS. And I'm sporting the brand new black camo Bourbon and BS barrel hoodie, which I'm really happy about. Kind of show you guys real quick here. There's what I'm talking about. There's that green shirt on there. And then there's a couple colors. That's the shirt I've got on right now. You've got the BS in a different shirt. There's the podcast shirt. And we got 4 different colors, including a 5th one with the charity shirt. And then that's the hoodie I have on there. And then
wearing the same shirt.
As me. Lou's doing it?
Yeah.
Nice. So there's that blue one as well. There's a black and white. And then there's the one I've got on right now. So guys, I hope you guys enjoy the swag. We get some good feedback. And again, I love right here, that green one, we're going to be able to donate to St. Baldrick's Foundation. And that's for childhood cancer research. So we hope to have you guys contribute to that and support some of the.
And now they've actually made it easier to be able to find the shirts on the website.
Yeah. Just real quick, if you're watching live, have any interest in this, if you go to the top corner here and do official merchandise, you will recognize one of the logos right there, Bourbon and BS, and boom.
Cool.
So much easier.
Boom goes the dynamite.
Nice.
All right. It's enough business. Now that we're, 20 minutes into it. Got to really streamline that. Especially when Josh is in here. And thanks to Altadis. Moving on. No, you guys have been awesome.
I still have it written in the back of my little notebook here when I used to hold up when I was sitting off camera. Hold up and it said sponsors. Like, don't forget to.
Yeah, that's usually just at the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
Well, happy 4-year anniversary.
4 years.
Yeah. 4 years. That's pretty crazy.
Smoking something special for that. We're also drinking something that is, again, Josh has been on countless times. He's been a sponsor and a guest on the show several times. This is going to be a Starlight Indiana Straight Bourbon. Is that what it says on the front? I believe Indiana Straight Bourbon.
Yes, Indiana Straight Bourbon Whiskey.
There you go.
Single barrel.
This is a single barrel from Nashville, Tennessee, actually. And this is going to be from Frugal MacDoogal. which was a great liquor store I was at down there. Nate also hit that up when he was down in Nashville prior to my visit. And they've got a great selection. They had a lot of the Starlight stuff. I even sent it to Josh when I was down there and said, I've got this one. They had some of the different finished bottles as well in different barrels. So they had a sherry cask. They had another, what would I say? VDN, which I'm still got to look into it. So, yeah. Do you have any orange? No orange right now, unfortunately. But yeah, so this is barrel number 17311. If that means anything to you guys out there. Aged 4 years, 108.6 proof. And we've had the gentleman on from Starlight.
Christian
and his brother.
Blake. Yeah.
Well, I was looking for the initials on the label as to who picked it, and I didn't see any initials.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Frugal MacDoogal picked it. That's why I probably not seen any of their initials. But typically on their stuff, it would have one of their initials.
Yep.
So I wonder how many barrels they did of this.
I don't know. They had a lot of barrel picks from a lot of different places. They've got some buying power as well. Is that Irish or Scottish? Yeah.
That's going to be Scottish because it's MacDoogal. If it was Irish, it'd be MacDoogal.
So that was so much authority. He could be making that up.
There
don't you think?
There you go. I believe
Michael Hoyt, orange. No, not yet. But
you should have thought of that out, man. Some orange and black for them Houday.
I should have.
Those Bengals,
yeah, because
baby.
Everyone expected them to make the Super Bowl.
Yes. Hey.
No, but we're always open. We're always open to have different colors, and that's what some of the fun part is. Now that we're sorting out all the kinks right now, I do want to say on behalf of Buy Jack, since we're talking about the apparel, they had some supply chain stuff going on the last couple of weeks with the storms happening, because some of the stuff like they have some of the things like the blue, the gray shirts and all that stuff, but they don't have like the black camos. They don't have the green in stock because they don't utilize that color a whole lot.
Yeah.
So they place orders once, twice a week. Well, if we sell 10, 15, 20 green t-shirts, well, he orders them as they come, but then you have normal supply chain issues with them, the suppliers, and the wholesale, all that stuff. But everything is pending on the way, hopefully soon. I'd order orange for sure. It's my favorite color. Well, Michael, we'll see what we can do there.
Well, if we can find a charity that's their color, maybe we'll think about that later on in the year.
Yeah, there you go.
Or like opening, beginning of the NFL season, we could do an orange and black.
Yeah.
Do a couple of favorite colors. I'd do a Bears color.
Blue and orange.
That's right.
Orange, black.
That's right.
There you go.
May or may not have a red, white, and blue plan.
Orange shirt, and you can change the color of the lettering.
Yeah. The possibilities are almost endless, really.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Let's go to the cigar.
Yeah. So listen, I'll just interject here, and as Steve said, we had smoked the Montecristo Espada Signature 2 weeks ago. We had I had it planned the day before. I told Steve. He said, hey, you still plan on coming? I said, yeah. The impending storm. I'm glad that I didn't. In retrospect, we made the right decision, boys.
Yeah, we did. We shut down the next day.
Yeah.
Thursday, we shut down for the first time.
Yeah, it was
ever
crazy.
Due to weather that I recall.
We got almost 5 inches of ice.
Mm-hmm.
It did not stop icing until the wee hours of Friday morning.
Hours.
Yeah, it was crazy. But the Montecristo Espada Signature has now released. As you said, Easton has it in stock, correct?
Yeah, $10 at Easton. Yep. You got 10 boxes in, and I think at this point we're down to like 7, maybe 6.
Well, I'm glad that you got that many, because it's a short run. It's a true limited edition. As soon as this hit our radar, it was something that I was excited to get on the podcast and share, because I feel like we use the word unique a lot. But there's some truly unique factors about the blend and then about the flavor profile of this cigar that I was excited. The pairing, we didn't know. As of 2:00 today what we were going to do, because we had a plan, and then we called an audible. And I'm definitely glad we called an audible, because this cigar, and given its blend, is a little bit more of a medium smoking cigar, and I think the previous pick would have overshadowed the cigar a little bit. And
What was the proof of the other bottle there?
The bottle we were originally going to do is 123.6, and this is 108.6. Yeah. Well, but when I'll tell you this, when Steve brought that Starlight bottle back from Nashville, he and I talked about we were going to do that instead, and then it was just him talking to you about it, like, oh, by the way, in the last 2 weeks, no, we're gonna do this instead
because you hadn't gone to Nashville before I was on the podcast the last time, right? You went after.
I went
the storm.
That's right. You're absolutely right. We did not have this bottle in the artillery prior to that time when you were remote. You're right. I actually went the following weekend to Nashville. You're right.
Yeah, very good. So I'm super excited to smoke this right off the bat. What do you get, Nate?
I know I definitely got I could tell right away that it was more of a medium-bodied cigar. So initially, if someone who's familiar with the Espada lines, they would think, oh, medium body. Well, the original Espada is medium, but there's something different. There's a lot of, it's a very, very different flavor profile that I'm still trying to get out of this cigar. I've only smoked about an inch of it so far. But it's got this kind of soft leatherness to it. The wrapper kind of has this velvety texture to the wrapper. What kind of wrapper is it?
Yeah, so the wrapper, or I'll just go ahead and say the makeup of this. The wrapper is a Colorado Claro grown in Jalapa Valley, Nicaragua. And then the binder is a Nicaraguan Habano and Nicaraguan fillers. So a truly unique wrapper when it comes to the Montecristo line, and a truly unique wrapper when it comes to the Espada line as well. I don't know that any of our cigars in our portfolio have donned a Colorado Claro wrapper.
There's not many cigars in the industry that use a Colorado Claro.
So I did want to, I wanted to talk to you before this. So I'm not, this is just me asking. Colorado Claro. Claro is typically a lighter shade.
Color. Yeah.
Lighter shade. Colorado is like a medium brown.
Yeah.
So that's what I was confused, because like this is,
well, we got the Espada.
Yeah, how does that compare? It's really close.
Let me pull it out of the cello.
So it's a little bit darker,
which is surprising, right?
Yeah, it is.
Right?
Yeah, as soon as I pull, yeah.
And the wrapper is a vintage Nicaraguan Jalapa Valley Habano wrapper. On the.
Do we know anything about the fermentation of this wrapper?
Well, no, I don't. But okay. I will tell you. I don't know it specifically, but primarily when you're growing tobaccos in Jalapa, in the Jalapa region, you're going to ferment those. It's at least going to be a double fermentation.
That can contribute to that being a slightly darker color, because they're going to pull more oils out of it. And then all the other tobacco that they're using, it can all run oils and blend and all that stuff together. So
yeah. It has a great, I don't even want to use the leathery sheen, but because I do pull a lot of leather, from the cigar.
I do too.
The dry inhale was pretty pleasant. A lot of like a dry dark cocoa that I got from it. A little bit of sweetness. Overall, it's a very enjoyable cigar.
No real spice. I don't really get any spice on it. Which
really?
If there is, it's not much for me. Which is actually kind of unique for an all Nicaraguan tobacco cigar. Like, I'm expecting there to be a nice pepper note to it. If there is a spice on this, it's very soft and delicate.
Yeah, very subtle.
It's not bold. But then talking about the Claro, while you guys were talking about that, it reminded me of another cigar of another company that actually had that on the band, that it was a Colorado wrapper on it, and it was about the same color as this, and it's kind of got this this slight red hue to that wrapper.
Yep.
I was just curious
Yep.
with the Colorado, like saying Claro after that. I was thinking this is more of a Colorado shade. That's all I was asking, really.
Yeah.
It's curious. So I get a little bit of a not spicy, but a little bit of like a warm baking spices, I guess, with it when I was smoking it earlier, a little bit more than I am right now with the whiskey.
Not like not like a pepper.
No.
Yeah.
No, not pepper. Not even like not like a chili pepper, not like that kind of pepper, like a spice.
Like a seasoning.
Yeah. I don't know what exactly, but I'm getting a little bit more of that.
Some of the audience like pepper. No.
Oh shit, yeah. Just in general, saying pepper. I said it again. No, you don't have to play it.
Even on the retro hail, doing a little retro hail, which I don't often try. It's pretty
The retro's very delicate,
spice free,
mm-hmm.
and a little bit of an earthy tone that that I get from it. What about you, Steve?
Well, again, I'm apparently off a little bit from you guys because I am getting a little bit of a spice. I get a little bit of you don't have to drink on this one, but a little bit of a black pepper in the retro hail. You're saying it's very delicate and all that stuff. It's not overwhelming. I think this is a very balanced cigar, but I think there's just a ton of flavor coming from it. When I smoked it earlier, I was after I smoked the other one that you had shared with me.
Yeah.
So it was going from a bolder cigar,
Mm-hmm.
as we were talking, like kind of like a hardy. It was a Brazilian wrapper leaf, Nicaraguan filler binder, and then I went to this, and this still held up right after smoking the other one.
Yeah.
So again, I've had two different smoking experiences of this blend on the same day. One after a stronger cigar, fuller bodied, again with Brazilian, so it's a little different, Matafina. So it's a little different flavor profile going to this, and now I'm doing it with a whiskey. I do say, so we did this where we were going to be taking sips of the whiskey before the podcast started. So that's what we did. So again, like Nate, you haven't had this on a fresh palate before this cigar. Josh, you have.
Yeah.
Well, that's why, like, I had a couple sips of the whiskey before we went live, but then once I lit up the cigar, like I waited to go back to the whiskey for my first about half inch of the cigar.
It's fair. I don't know. Like, you guys don't get any pepper or spice at all from it. You're getting all leather. I think I get more out of the retro than you guys do, I guess, then, because on mine right now, I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm just saying, like, I'm getting more oomph from it. You know what I mean? You're saying very delicate, Nate. It is, again, balanced. It's not necessarily going to make me sneeze or anything like that, but it does have, again, I'm getting more, I don't know, those food type flavors as opposed to, like, I do get a little bit of the, like, woodiness.
Mm-hmm.
I do get some of that.
Now, is it after you took a drink of?
I've been trying to smoke on this a little harder right now. You know what I mean? Trying to get more out of it on the palate. But it's very. I was saying earlier today when I was smoking it, actually, is that it's very flavorful. I don't want to smoke it too fast because it's starting to heat up on me, which it didn't earlier. The construction earlier today and so far right now is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
You were right about the look of it. Colorado, this is a medium brown. Again, Colorado Claro, that could be something that I don't necessarily understand because, again, when we talk about a lot of this stuff too, when you talk about like Claro or you talk about, like, you see it on there on, the term Maduro, it's just all these things are thrown around, not necessarily in this case, but you almost get bombarded across the industry that this is like used as a marketing tool. You know what I mean?
Well, like,
we're coming from Plasencia with Montecristo, Colorado Claro. It'd be interesting for me to kind of see exactly how they explain that.
I'm gonna look it up here real quick.
Okay.
Because I know, like, there's one company when on a box of their cigars, when it says Claro, they're referring to Candela. But then I also know there's another brand that on their box it says English Claro, and that looks like a shade grown Connecticut.
Talking about the Hoya.
Yes. I wasn't going to mention any brands specifically because they weren't Josh's.
It's okay. Everyone will be okay.
So
it's like not too light, not too dark. That's Colorado for you.
So what? And this is going to Cigar Aficionado.
Okay.
And what their definition of Colorado when it comes to leaf selection. A medium brown to brownish red shade of wrapper tobacco.
That's Colorado. So again, Colorado is not necessarily the seed. It's going to be, you're talking about the shade of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be interesting to ask.
Look up there.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
No definition.
Yeah. No exact definition like the Colorado had. Let's see.
So it's interesting.
So
you guys. But sorry, while you're trying to find that, I was going to pull up. So this is something that Altadis USA has put together as a kind of an info sheet on your Espada line, and we don't bring in the Estoque, which I believe was a limited run as well, correct? Which was a fuller body one, but that's not on this sheet.
Correct.
Okay,
yes.
So the Montecristo, the Espada by Montecristo, the Montecristo Espada Oscuro are your mainstays at this point, right? That's part of the lineup for the foreseeable future. And then you have the Espada Estoque, which was a limited run, which is a richer, fuller bodied expression from Plasencia and Montecristo. Now you have the Montecristo Signature, which you say is medium, and this is a rare limited production cigar. We don't know how many, or do you know that
I think Josh mentioned that 2 weeks ago.
Yes, yeah. So they did a run of 4,600 boxes.
Okay.
10 count boxes.
10 count boxes.
46,000 cigars.
46,000 cigars.
So,
true limited run.
And once again, this is a collaboration of Rafael Nodal and the Grupo de Maestros, which is a small group of master blenders, if you will. It's a group of people in the Dominican factories that you have, right?
Dominican and Honduran.
Yep. But they're working with the Plasencia family, which has also Honduran and Nicaraguan factories as well. But this is all Nicaraguan tobacco from Plasencia. You guys have notes on here, and that's what I was, again, when I said neither right nor wrong, I didn't look at this, but it says smooth, silky texture, which I think we can all agree with. It's very balanced and delicate as far as the complex blend that we have here. Rich taste of full of chocolate and spice. So they say spice. So again, I think it's something that maybe, again, for different people, you get those different notes, which I think is a great reminder for all you guys out there. You can listen to what we say. You can read all the Cigar Aficionado, the Half Wheels, all the blogs, and all this stuff about what they are tasting and how many, in the first third, all this stuff. Make sure that you find some either articles or like as far as like websites or magazines, or even you could listen to this, and if you agree more with Nate, sometimes you agree more with me on it. If we're agreeing together, you have to kind of find someone that you might, I guess, follow along with what their tasting notes are. When you try it, you get it. If you see something different, it's nice to kind of hear what people have to say about these things, but also remember some of the best parts of it is to try it yourself and see how it hits you.
And that's one of the things I like to do with newer cigar smokers is I don't necessarily want to give them a lot of detail on flavors of cigars, because if they're new to cigar smoking, their palate may not be that refined to be able to pick out all those different flavors. So I don't want to sit there and tell them, 4 or 5 flavors that I get out of a cigar. And then when they go home and smoke it, they don't get those flavors. And then they feel like, oh, I guess I'm not doing this right. I don't get as much out of it. Like, I want that person to experience that cigar on their own terms. Like, once you are, become a seasoned cigar smoker, then we start bouncing taste profiles and stuff like that off one another.
Well, I do with Charlie Creekmore, who you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. He throws it out there. According to him, he says Colorado Claro is matured faster and cultivated faster than most wrappers, less if shade cultivated in more direct sunlight. So, again, I mean, I think the Colorado is the mainstay of this Claro. This is the first time that we've seen that kind of thing on anything from Montecristo. Correct?
Correct. Yeah.
But,
and going back to the cigar that we're going to be smoking second, which is the Espada Original, was the first Montecristo Nicaraguan Puro, 100% Nicaraguan tobaccos that donned a Montecristo label on them,
which has now branched off into other Nicaraguan expressions from you, like more of the Espada line. You've got some AJ,
Yeah.
the Montecristo Nicaragua series.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
So this was like this Espada line for you guys was a huge jumping off platform, I think, of what Montecristo can do.
Yeah.
With that name. This is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yep.
Well, I think what's also great is, within that line, you've got, 3 main cigars, the original, the Oscuro, and then this signature, all Plasencia, all Nicaraguan tobacco, and all 3 of them. And yet all 3 are very different from one another.
They are. They really are. This one being, again, I think lighter than most so far.
Yeah.
We haven't seen a Montecristo Espada Connecticut yet. I don't know if I want to see a Montecristo Espada Connecticut unless
I think that'd be competing too much with the classic and the white series.
I think, we saw what Plasencia can do with one of your other brands, which is Romeo Julieta.
Yeah.
The Connecticut Nicaragua,
Yep.
which is a phenomenal smoke.
The first Nicaraguan grown Connecticut wrapper.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
Connecticut seed, shade grown in Nicaragua. That I could see them messing around with a little bit.
Yeah.
If you were going to come out with a Montecristo Espada Connecticut, if you will, Plasencia, I would assume, would kind of refine that process that they did with that blend, or maybe put more age on some of the tobacco in there, whatever it might be, to justify, obviously, the Montecristo price tag and reputation on there. So, I mean, Plasencia, we've seen it happening a lot. And now I think about it, is just kind of thinking out loud. You guys have had the Plasencia Almafuerte. They had an Almafuerte Colorado, which was a lighter shade.
Yeah.
So
came in
that could
green
be
box.
that could be something that they're branching off. Not
So-
saying they're
so-
using
so
the same wrapper.
I would be interested to smoke that and try.
I have
that
smoked that.
against this.
This is better.
I will agree, and I don't know if it was more psychological, but because I've smoked the Almafuerte, and then I smoked that Almafuerte with that Colorado wrapper on it, and it just wasn't as bold as the Fuerte. Which, if you look at the 2 cigars, you would expect that.
Yeah,
But
The Fuerte
but
is the red,
no, the black,
the black.
the Alma del Fuego is the red.
Okay.
The Almafuerte is the black band, and then they had the Almafuerte Claro, which was green band, kind of like your H. Upman lighter there.
Okay.
And
fantastic.
but
lighter.
as far as I knew, if I may be mistaken, Steve, but those 2 Almafuertes were the same blend, just the wrapper was different.
I believe that's the project that they did. Yeah,
And that
and it only came in the 6 though.
and the green one with that Colorado wrapper tasted more of a medium bodied cigar. The Fuerte with that original wrapper was a fuller body, fuller flavor cigar. And
Again.
I think this cigar may actually be a little bit more flavorful than what the Colorado from Plasencia was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a extremely flavorful cigar.
Complex. Yeah.
Complex.
But,
I'm
still
not,
medium body.
it is, and it's interesting, like I said, that you guys didn't pick out the spice. Now, I will say, I have kind of let my whiskey over here rest and smoke the cigars. We're talking more and more.
Yeah.
It's coming back to, not saying they don't go well together. We'll get to that towards the end of part 1 here, but I mean, it's getting back to more of the flavors I remember from this afternoon, smoking it without whiskey, just in the shop. I was drinking water. I just smoked the other cigar, went to this. Now, all of a sudden, this is getting a little bit cleaner flavor profile, what I remember. Still getting a little bit of that spice, still getting those spices, like it's more of that kind of, when I say baking spices, I am not a baker. I don't know what those, what spices, how much you need to put into certain dishes or anything like that, but I know what I know what I know, and that's what I know.
It's not Old Bay seasoning.
I really do like this.
Yeah. It is. I've used it before. It is a cleaner. You know, when I cleanse my palate and I take a couple swishes of water and then try it. It's got a clean finish. I'll say that.
Yeah.
It
Kind of like that
definitely does.
Vegafina 98.
Yeah, that was it.
So Ray
that 5 country blend
has got a couple of good points. And again, if you guys are listening now, I shared it to a lot of my Facebook pages. I shared it to my personal and also the Tinderbox at Easton page. So if you guys are listening live, or later. Like, share it to different Facebook friends or family or anyone that would enjoy this. Or once we get to part 2, we're going to get that. Let me see if this is it. So this is an earlier in the day cigar, such as before dinner. Let me get my eyes checked.
You know what? I think.
What's the consensus here?
It depends on what you're having for dinner. Like I wouldn't want to smoke this after a steak dinner with red wine. I think that might be.
I mean, not immediately following.
Yeah.
Right. But I think it stands up enough that it still wouldn't disappoint depending on what you're drinking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not both the Oscuro that we smoked 2 weeks ago, and then the cigar that we're going to enjoy after this, the Espada in part 2, the original, are classified by my company as medium to full body, whereas the signature is classified as a medium. But I feel like it has enough texture and complexity and flavor profiles that it stands up, that it could be an after dinner cigar.
Yeah.
I would prefer to smoke this, like to Ray's point, I would rather smoke this like in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Just because since it's not a very bold cigar, it's not a full body cigar, there's a lot of flavor, but because it's a very well balanced cigar, and I've said a couple times, the flavors that are in there are kind of delicate because they're not just like no one flavor just stands out and punches you in the face. I would want to smoke this on a fresher palate rather than, my third cigar of the day or after dinner or something like that. Like I would want to smoke this earlier on before I work my way up to, a stronger cigar.
Yeah. To Ray, your question, is this an earlier in the day, such as before dinner? It's, for me, it would be a little bit of what you eat. Yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? But I think a lot of it is if you're pairing it with something, whether it be a coffee, whether it be a whiskey or a cocktail. I think no matter what time of the day, whether it be before dinner or after, I would approach this cigar not to waste the experience of what they've done with this blend of tobacco. I would do kind of what we were doing, at least out of caution, and not necessarily go with a high proof or very strong cocktail. It's more maybe have something with a little bit more sweetness. Perhaps a wheated bourbon might have been a better pairing. And again, we're not quite there yet. But I mean, to answer that question, it's not as much of a time of the day because there's enough flavor in this blended tobacco that no matter what time of the day for me, I'm going to probably enjoy this. If you smoke in the morning, this could be one that you would do. This is a lot of flavor. So again, if you've had a black coffee or if you do it with, cream, sugar or whatever, a mocha, whatever, latte, chino, frappa.
You must be talking about Josh's coffee because I know you're not talking about mine.
He had a black coffee this morning.
Amen.
But no, I think my point is there is a lot of flavor, but being medium bodied, this will not overpower anything, but it does have the threat of being overpowered possibly by something that you're enjoying before or during the enjoyment of the experience of what you guys did with this tobacco.
Yeah,
which I think is cool. I mean, it's just very, very. I keep saying it, very flavorful. We all smoke a lot of cigars here on this show, and I know a lot of you guys out there do as well. I notice as people get into smoking cigars, much like I've made this point before with the bourbons and the whiskeys and all that stuff, you see this progression where a lot of people either stay real mild or light, or they start dabbling in a little bit stronger, a little bit stronger, a little bit stronger. Now you want the full-bodied cigars. You want the barrel proofs. You want the cast strengths. You want, the Lajero drip, as we call it, where it's just pounded full of the top primings. And so I just need it to be bold. I want to be able to feel it. I want to feel it on my palate. I want to feel it. And, at the end of it, I want to be a little bit tired and, can't stand up type thing. You'll see it, though, a lot of, I think most cigar smokers, and myself included, still enjoy the full-bodied. I enjoy a lot of the mild stuff. I'm more in that medium to medium full range.
Yeah.
I rarely really go full-bodied on a normal day of smoking. And I also don't necessarily go to a mild cigar first thing in the morning and anytime. Like, just this is kind of my wheelhouse at this point, is enjoying still partial Nicaraguan tobacco. I love the medium body. I like Plasencia stuff. I really enjoy what they're doing. Montecristo works with some of the best. Plasencia, their own factories. AJ Fernandez. I mean, you guys are utilizing some of the best tobaccos in the world right now. And I think this one is the only negative about this cigar, I will say, negative, is that it's limited.
Yeah.
I would say that. And the size, I was curious. I think I mentioned this before. I don't know if it's Raphael's doing, is this 55 ring gauge he did with your aging room rare collection, which we featured on the show.
Yep.
This thing comes out with a 55 ring gauge, and I'm like, is this a new mold? Did they have, like, they stumble across this 55 ring gauge molds, or what's going on here?
Yeah, I think it is a little bit
good
different.
size.
So I was going to speak to that because the cigar that we had last week, 2 weeks ago, the Montecristo Espada Signature, and then the cigar that we're going to have in the second has 4 Vitolas.
Right.
It's got a Robusto called a Ricasso. It's got a Toro, which is called the Guard. It's got a Quillian, which is the Churchill size,
7x56.
Yeah,
which is a
the
thick
Churchill Extra, yeah. And then it's got a Magnum size, a 6x60 that have been added to both lines. And this comes out, the limited edition, in a 6x55, as Steve said. And so it's just a little bit more of romancing this blend, romancing. I think that the size does the blend excellent.
Well, I would imagine since you're only doing 46,000 cigars, I would imagine you'd want to hone in on just one size. So that way, because you're limited by the amount of tobacco that you have.
Yep. So
rather than using those leaves and having to trim a lot off to make smaller cigars, let's just stick with one size. That's it.
Yep.
There's a little bit less waste when you're doing something like that.
So Josh just mentioned, I want to say Ray Cheshire from Vietnam. We all know him on the show. He's going to be in town, not for the Smoking Tent event, but he's going to be in town later in March. So I'm going to get together with him. I'm going to try to get him in the garage if he's around on Wednesday. Cool. I think if he comes that far, he needs to at least stop in.
Yeah, that'd be neat.
If he can stay up this late.
Are we going to do a special edition episode if it's not a Wednesday?
We'll see. Anyways, no, I'm going to have to twist his arm just to be in the garage. But he wants a care package from Josh. Speaking of which, I do want to combine the two efforts from 2 of our sponsors, Altadis. You got one of these already, Nate?
Yes, sir.
All right. So Josh had a special care package for the podcast with the Montecristo Espada Signature.
Yeah.
So one of these things, you just mentioned the different sizes, Ricasso, Guard, and Quillian.
Yep.
So don't worry, Nate's not threatening Josh right now. If you see this on camera, it's a pretty small thing. We have 2.
Hey.
What? We have 2 Espada limited edition letter openers that, if I could, give back to you. And then if you are the first 2 people at the Smoking Tent event to come up to Josh and say the words, "I saw you on the Bourbon and BS podcast. I'm here for my letter opener." He will have 2 of these. Can you remember to do that?
Yeah.
So he'll have 2 of these, and so he might tell you, is Willow still watching? I need to know when she's off. Okay. No. He can tell you to fuck off, which he won't. But he'll say I already gave them away, or if he still has them, we've got 2 of them for Bourbon and BS podcast listeners that are coming to the Smoking Tent event. So I assume it'll be a VIP member or ticket holder, rather, that you guys can come to the Altadis booth and check in with him and say, I saw you on the Bourbon and BS podcast talking about.
And I'm gonna go ahead and throw mine in. Steve gave one to me because I haven't got one yet. But no, this is, just a little different. We're thoughtful in terms, we don't want you to get those paper cuts when opening up your letters. And just an espada, right? The Spanish word for sword is
Very
where
cool.
the name came from, and it's got Montecristo engraved on one side and espada on the other. Yeah, just something unique. So yeah, as Steve said, say I saw you on the podcast.
Easy.
Where is my letter opener? and we'll see what we can come up with.
Ray asks, will it open email? Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Just hit the enter button. So that's very cool. Thank you for the support on that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to share that with not only the community, but also, again, this great event coming up. So if you guys are local, I know we have people coming from all around the Midwest, mainly to the 10 event. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So keep Josh on his toes, that he hopefully leaves that in. Just leave it in your car.
Yeah.
You know, because
Yeah.
leave it in your bag, whatever.
Yeah,
Are you sure we don't want to hang on to it?
I don't want that. I got enough to worry about that weekend. I already have like a box of hats. I got more stuff I'm going to be bringing that day. This is not going to be one of those.
Yeah, I'll be in the shop that day.
There you go.
If it's not there, it's not on me. It's on one of these guys. How about that? All right, let's shift gears if you want. We're kind of pushing some time here because of the long sponsor details in the beginning, which I appreciate all the sponsors and all you guys with the support through Patreon and also Venmo and also on buyjack.com/bourbonandbs. Some great apparel out there. We got that charity green shirt for St. Baldrick's Foundation. So
I ordered 4 new shirts. So yeah.
Charlie Creekmore. Spoiler alert, do not try to take that letter opener on any of your carry-on bags during air travel plans. Not any sporting or concert events.
Yeah.
It's for home use, for opening letters only.
There you go.
All right. So going to the Starlight, put this up here. Starlight Bourbon. This is the Frugal MacDoogal pick. Again, I was in Nashville. We found out that they have locations in the Carolinas as well.
South Carolina.
Frugal MacDoogal's in Nashville, Tennessee. I was just down there a couple weeks. Again, as Josh was saying, right after we had him on when we were going over the Montecristo Espada Signature. That was that weekend between that and the Super Bowl, actually. But had the opportunity to go to Frugal MacDoogal, and it was a big liquor store. Had a great wine selection, big whiskey selection. I was able to, I asked him, even, while you're there, any Buffalo Trace products, and they had Sazerac rye, so I like that. So I grabbed a couple of those, and then I saw this, and because we've had a great experience with Starlight Distillery, having Christian and Blake on, who are the 7th generation, if I'm not mistaken, in the Huber family.
Yeah.
But this is what's Carl T? Is that what it is? Yeah, Carl T. Huber was the name of their
namesake
father or
no,
grandfather,
not father, grandfather.
Uncle, someone else in the family. These guys are basically really running the show as it seems, and they're incredible podcast. We'll have to look it up. You mind looking up which one that was? Because I remember we've had Spencer Lappin on the show before, who's a friend of the community, and he was listening to that on the audio, and he's saying, "Man, these guys really know their stuff." And I, before I could even say it, he's like, "Holy shit, 23 years old."
Yeah, 23 and 25.
23 and 25. Yeah. Christian's 23, right? Blake's the older one. Blake was on date night that night. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is, it says selected by Frugal MacDoogal, and it's distilled on Huber's farm, small batch. Again, 7th generation. It's a working farm as well as a distillery. And then the newer project, I want to say, was around 2010 or so. They started, if I remember correctly from that interview, they started the distillery project.
Yeah.
And so they learned a lot from, I believe, from the people from MGP in Indiana as well.
Yeah,
they're good friends with those people, and they learned a lot from this. But I'm going to read the back label here. Starlight Distillery's straight bourbon whiskey single barrel releases are made with sweet corn mash, then distilled in our copper pot stills. Aging occurs in Huber's old rick house, situated on the 7th generation Huber estate, established in 1843. New 53-gallon charred American oak barrels hold the spirits for a minimum of 4 years, after which the bourbon is bottled at cask strength, non-chill filtered. Enjoy. Family owned and farmed since 1843, distilled, aged, and bottled by Starlight Distillery. And this is in Borden, Indiana. And it was cool if you guys listen back to that. What was the episode?
So the first time when we had them on, that was episode 186, and we were debuting the Montecristo 12. The blue
Epic 12.
Yep.
Yeah.
So 186.
186.
Listen to that one, guys. Go back to that one if you haven't listened to it. You can go on the video on Facebook or YouTube, or if you guys, because we do have them remotely on the video, but also the audio as well. They talk about how it's a small town as well, and so they're all. I mean, it's a family and town effort on a lot of the
Yeah,
projects.
yeah,
It really
it's
seems-
incredible.
850 people live in town, and they have a 1,000-acre farm.
You remember that?
Yeah,
Jesus.
couldn't remember what I had for dinner 2 days ago, but yeah,
Wow.
no, that was last
cool.
night.
And Josh has had experience. He's been to their farm and just fantastic.
Yeah,
So
incredible outfit.
What do we think of this pick? Again, Starlight bourbon, and it's a barrel pick for a liquor store. So if you guys can get the regular bourbon, which what do we have up there? Is that the regular
That's the bottled and bond.
bottle and bond
And then we also featured
cigar?
the cigar batch, 2 different barrel picks from the cigar batch.
That's right.
Yeah.
One was one of the brothers, the other was the uncle.
That's right.
Yep.
So that's what do you think, Josh? You're a big fan. You're
Yeah.
I call you friends. I'd assume you know friends with the family at this point.
Yes. Yeah. It's and I've had some single barrel from them. This is a little bit. I feel that you can tell it's young.
Well, it's at least 4 years according to their statement.
Yeah. And it's I was talking with Nate before we started the episode and just trying to put my finger, on the different notes on what I got out of it, and then pairing it with the cigar.
Mhm.
Now, what do you mean when you say young? Because I mentioned that
Taking my
last week.
questions. I was waiting for him
Okay.
to
Because
finish.
I mentioned that last week, and Steve asked me, and I kind of talk about.
Josh, I was going to wait for you to finish, but go ahead.
That's okay. That's okay. The notes that you get out of it. It just leaves me comparatively to some of the other bourbons that I have, just leaves me wanting a little bit more.
Because I feel a lot of times when we or someone else says something tastes young, they either mean it tastes very corn heavy or it tastes like a lot of oak.
Can I see your glass? I'm not going to put my nose on. I just want to smell the Glencairn if I could.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve.
Yeah, this one is
It's not rocking in my glass.
I would say a little bit more one-dimensional. How's that sound?
Okay.
Not as much depth as you're used to with some of the other Starlight stuff.
Not as much depth, and I've had a lot of their finished products, and then quite a few of the bottled in bonds and the single barrel 4 grains and the 3 grains that they have. What do you have on the mash bill for this one? Anything, Nate?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't have
I don't
anything
think
on
they,
it because
with like a liquor store pick, they may not go all out. I mean,
Yeah.
we can look up Frugal MacDoogal.
I don't know how many different mash bill Starlight's using.
So it was really interesting at Frugal MacDoogal, which is fun to say. I agree, but
I know.
they had a lot of barrel picks with different distilleries. This was obviously one of them, and I was excited to see Starlight because I hadn't seen that out in the wild because I haven't really been out of the state in last couple of years, other than Louisville, and I don't think we knew about this in June.
No.
Or wasn't looking for it, but this obviously stood out. They even have some at that store with their own label on it. It says Frugal MacDoogal store pick, but it's just like it's almost like he just printed off a label in the office in the back and just stuck them on the bottles.
Yeah.
And it was $99. And I'm like, I'm not going to take a chance.
What was it?
It literally just has that the mascot of the store was basically like the whole
But
label.
you didn't know like where it was coming from, or
I just said Frugal MacDoogal, and that was the brand. It was like their own stuff.
Yeah, private label.
It might have had something else, huh?
how much was this?
60?
Yeah,
Does that
that
sound
seems right. Yeah,
I can look at the text I sent you. It probably
Yeah, I
was
think.
in the.
I
was holding it in the picture.
I think the bottled and bond was
60?
74.
Yeah, and then the sherry cask and the other barrel finishes were in that 79 range, I believe, at the store there. So, you're looking at basically looking at here.
You know what this kind of reminds me of a little bit, Steve?
What's that?
Not too long ago, recently, when Sean was here, this actually reminds me a little bit of the Peerless Double Oak that we had.
Oh yeah, a little
Because
bit.
and a couple reasons why I say that. One, so both the Peerless, surprisingly, even though it was a double oak and how rich and flavorful that was, that's still just a 4-year product. So is this. And you can tell by looking at the color, like this has got a really dark caramel color to it. It doesn't look like a younger whiskey. Like it doesn't look like say an Angel's Envy, which kind of has this very golden kind of honey color to it. This looks more like a darker caramel, kind of like that Peerless Double Oak. But it also has like this this candied flavor to it a little bit as well. Like it for me on the nose, this had this this like candied ham flavor, like a sugar glaze type flavor to it on the nose. And then on the palate, originally there was this faint sweetness, but then it had this very minty finish to it.
Minty, yeah.
Especially like after you swallowed it and then like it took a breath and exhaled through your mouth, like it kind of picked that up and it was like an effervescence type of finish to it. Just kind of this peppermint type flavor on the finish. But with the cigar, like after smoking the cigar, for most of this part one and letting the whiskey rest and then going back to the whiskey, the sweetness up front actually became a little bit thicker, a little heavier sweetness.
On the bottle here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like a peppermint, Ray.
Yeah, that was one thing that we talked about. Was bringing that air across your tongue. It has a little bit more of a mintiness that it brings.
Yeah,
well, it has a minty sensation too. It's not necessarily the heat, right? It's probably what people equate to heat, but with that, I'm not going to go as far as say almost like a menthol type of it. But it does have this mint sensation, like when you do an Altoid or whatever. I don't know if it's not the flavor necessarily real pepperminty, but it has that kind of
cooling,
or like
cooling.
Yeah.
Eucalyptus almost.
Yeah. Polar ice. There we go.
So
if you're feeling under the weather, make sure you grab a bottle of Starlight Distillery bourbon, and that'll.
I wish we knew if this was a 4-grain or a 3-grain, because I believe the 4-grain mash bills that they use, 51% corn, 20% rye, 20% malted barley, and 9% wheat.
That sounds delicious.
So possible. Ted is Christian and Blake's father, and Carl T, I believe, is the grandfather.
Okay. So that would have been 5th generation.
Because
Correct.
Yeah.
Because of kind of that minty and floral note that I get from this, that would lead me to believe that this would be that 4-grain, the less amount of corn, and then having that higher rye content in it. That it makes me think this would be a 4-grain mash bill.
So, Josh, you say a bit young. You've had the opportunity to drink several of the different expressions from Starlight. Again, working relationship through the job, and then you've obviously, bonded with those guys a bit, through, and thankfully you've hooked us up with them on the podcast, as well as some special bottles like that the cigar batches. How does this rank? I mean, so objectively by itself, and then compared to some of the other bottles that you've had.
Oh, and I say that I didn't mean to say that in a derogatory way.
No, I don't think anyone took it like that.
I was just being a little bit more discerning, and I think it was it is a great bottle. The flavor notes that you get out of it pair, I think, pretty well with the cigar. The complexity of the cigar, I think, having chosen a more of a wheated bourbon might have lent itself a little bit better to to the cigar instead of something that has a little bit higher rye content, I think, as you were saying, Nate. But overall, I mean, I'm well pleased. I think it drinks really smooth.
Okay.
And a great overall, sipping bourbon that I would, encourage anybody that could get their hands on, especially, one of these store picks or single barrels.
Yeah, I think at this point now, I'll speak to that, and then I already put up on the screen there the whiskey, cigar, and pairing ratings, because we can start kind of with you, Josh, and kind of continue that thought process there. I can say from here on out, so far, I have not been disappointed with any of the Starlight expressions that I've been fortunate enough that Josh, you brought along with you on the podcast. Now I was able to secure a bottle once again, thanks to Venmo at Bourbon and BS.
Yeah,
it was a great pick by that person that donated the money for the Venmo there.
Yeah, thanks, Kristen.
And I think that this is, I know that when I see Starlight, it's going to catch my eye. Maybe I'm not going to like throw down $80 for every time I see it for like the finished bottles, but I will if it's going to be either a store pick or whatever it might be. If for what it was, like 55 or so, I'm going to be grabbing a bottle typically when I see Starlight Distillery. And I will say that now I am a little bit, I'd say, biased because I've met Christian and Blake. Yeah. That it's just like anything else. You meet the people. It's good. Even if, and I'm not saying this is, but even if it's like, okay, I'd like to support those people. Mm-hmm. We've got a great relationship with the people at like Watershed here in Columbus, Ohio. Nate, you and I have both been trying to grab what we can from them as far as some of the cool projects that they're doing. I like to typically have at least the 4-year blended now that they have that. But it is fun to buy something, would be cigars, whiskey, whatever, that you've had a connection with those people. And it's even better when you're really pleased with it. Same thing with the Montecristo. I mean, we always talk about that. People buy from people they like. And, Josh, you, Brian, and I in the shop today, we're talking about business and sales and all that stuff. And that's one thing we didn't cover is that once you get to know like a brand like Altadis, yeah, there's the face-ish sort of right now with Rafael Nodal. It's because he's blending his name's on a lot of this stuff. He's in charge of a lot of the marketing as well, correct? I mean, he wears a lot of hats. But as far as Columbus, Ohio, Ohio in general, and you cover what other territory?
Indiana and Kentucky.
And don't you cover up northeast somewhere, Buffalo?
No, not anymore.
Not anymore. Thank goodness. Nothing wrong with Buffalo, but it's just kind of out of your way.
Yeah.
It's a long left turn from your other territories. But you are kind of the face of Altadis. And so when someone like Josh walks into the store at Tinderbox at Easton or another account, I'm sure people recognize you as the Altadis rep. Mm-hmm. And like, what are you guys smoking today and all that stuff? Or like, Josh, what's new? Like, it's these conversations that people buy from people they like. I think Starlight is just exactly that now for me as well. Now that we've met the guys, we've had good experiences, and I've yet to have a bad experience with a bottle,
right?
A barrel pick or some of those batches that we've had. I think it's really cool to see now. I mean, if they ever make it to Ohio and it's sitting on the shelf here, for sure I'm going to grab a bottle of it,
right?
Because it's good, and I also like the guys that are working on the projects.
If there was that cigar batch that was the 113.4 or 0.6, whatever it was, if that was readily available on the shelf, I would buy that every time I went in the liquor store.
What if it was $80?
I'd buy it every other time I went in the liquor store.
I remember who we're talking to here. That says a lot, though, coming from Nate Hale right there. I gotta be honest there.
That was one of my one of my favorite bottles that we've done in the last year.
For sure.
Yeah. Very cool.
All right, Josh, I got it up on the screen there. Let's do the rating time. Rounding out part 1 here. Whiskey out of 10, 10 being the best, cigar out of 10, and then the rating. So 3 different ratings, 10 being the best out of those.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to the Starlight, the Frugal MacDoogal pick, I give it an 8. I think it's a solid bourbon. Great sipping. The notes that I look for in a single barrel bourbon. It leaves you satisfied, but it hits all of the notes that you could ask for from a 4-year bourbon.
Okay.
So 8 on that. The cigar is a quickly become one in my top 5 wheelhouse because of
Overall or in your portfolio?
I would say overall in my wheelhouse of what I've been liking to smoke on a regular basis, what one of my go-to is, and the criteria, right, that falls under is depends on what time of the day it is, what I've been drinking, what
Right.
I've been eating. But that being said, the medium bodied, I love it that it's a great anytime cigar that I can go and pick up. The flavor profiles of the cigar are just out of this world in terms of the leather that you get from it. The spice, not so much to me, which is a positive thing. I get a little bit more of like an earthy and dry dark cocoa that I talked about. And then the construction. The construction is great. Almost every cigar that I've had now, which is close to 10 of these, have been
Smoking these by the box, are we?
I'm telling you, man, it's
You must know someone.
So after Josh, there's 4,599 boxes.
After the people from Altus USA smoke their share,
And then here's
they're even more limited. Turns
But
out.
I mean, look at this. That was one thing that we didn't talk about. It does plume smoke.
It
right?
does,
Right.
it
It's I think we used that word before. Like it's a hearty cigar, but I wouldn't say a rich cigar.
Mm-hmm.
So it satisfies my palate in that manner. So I would give the cigar a 9.5. I think it hits all of my check boxes, and then the pairing together. The pairing together, the little bit of sweetness that comes across your tongue from the bourbon, I think pairs well with the cigar. I would give the pairing an 8.5.
So we had 8
on the whiskey, 9.5 on the
9.5,
cigar, and then
8.5.
8.5 on the pairing.
Okay.
Yep.
Nate, to you, sir.
So I'm a 9 on the whiskey.
Wow. Okay.
This is a really good bottle. That cigar batch, the first cigar batch, I like that more than this one. But this is still a really good bottle. This is a really good store pick.
Give it a 9. That's a good rating.
It's very enjoyable. If it didn't say that it was a 4-year and I didn't know anything about Starlight, I would not expect to get that kind of flavor from just a 4-year whiskey. But then again, we also found that a few weeks ago when we had that Peerless Double Oak that I kind of compared this to. That's only a 4-year as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of flavor for a 4-year product,
Mm-hmm.
Which just goes to show that the guys at Starlight are doing some really amazing things that they can pull.
Yeah, it's fun to see.
They can pull that much flavor from a 4-year whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
The cigar, I'm a 8.5 on the cigar. It's a very enjoyable cigar, great construction. It has good flavor. I just with the way my palate is, I would have. I kind of like something that's a little bit more bold in the flavor, not necessarily full body, but just the flavor. I kind of like it when there are certain notes that really stick out and overwhelm the palate. This one is very well balanced. There's not one particular flavor that stands out, but it's a solid cigar. As far as the pairing, I'm a little.
What was the rating on the cigar?
8.5.
8.5. 9. 8.5.
I'm a little on the pairing. I'm a little bit different than Josh. I do agree that smoking the cigar for a while and then going to the whiskey up front tastes a little bit sweeter. But I think with this, even being at 108.6, which is not a very strong whiskey compared to some of the things that we've done, I think this whiskey, because of the richness and depth of flavor, slightly overpowers the cigar. I think this is a cigar that might go a little bit better with like a 90 to 100 proof, depending on what it is.
Yeah.
Because like we've had some 100 proofs even that are just so heavy and maybe spicy that would even overpower this more than what this does.
Yeah.
Like say that Old Forester 100 proof. Like I think that would absolutely kill this cigar because that kind of comes across a little hotter, even though it's just 100 proof. But I think because the flavor on this cigar is so balanced and kind of delicate that anything maybe over 100 proof might be just a little too strong.
So what was that?
But thank God we didn't do the 123.6.
That's what I'm saying, man. We pulled the audible on that one.
Good call on that one.
What? So what was your pairing?
I was an 8 on the pairing.
An 8 on the pairing. Okay.
So like with you, your pairing rate was in between the whiskey and cigar. My pairing rate was lower than each of those.
Okay.
On the whiskey, I'm going to give it an 8.5. I think this is a nice bottle. Again, very impressed with the Starlight stuff. Very objectively, not even comparing it to the other expressions we've had from them. I would say that this bottle is very enjoyable. I'm still 8.5. I mean, I'm going to stand by my statement that I'm going to typically try to, if I find a Starlight product or if I'm in a state or liquor store that has that stuff and I don't have more at home, I'm not necessarily going to just keep stocking up on everything. I'm not going to buy it necessarily every time if I already have like maybe 2 or 3 bottles of Starlight stuff at home. But if I'm intrigued by it, hear good things about that particular finished barrel or whatever it might be, I will definitely grab that. This is 8.5. Comparing it to some of the other Starlights, I don't know what I rated some of the other ones, but I mean, I would say that it's right up there with them, but it wouldn't be my favorite. But objectively, it's again, I would highly recommend it if you're in Nashville and you see this, I'd grab it. It is a nice bottle of whiskey that I am absolutely enjoying based on my comments earlier. The cigar, I'm at a 9.5. I've really, the 2 in one day has been a treat. Smoking it without the whiskey, and I'll get to that in the pairing here, I'd give it a 9.5.
Yeah.
By itself. The pairing, I'm still going to give an 8. It's the lowest of the, everything else. It's not a bad pairing. This is still an enjoyable, like us hanging out here, smoking this cigar and this bottle of whiskey. If we were just hanging out just as friends and, coming over to the house and just, hey, you guys want to come over for some cigars and whiskey or whatever it might be, I wouldn't be afraid to pull these two and say, hey, try these. You haven't had the Starlight. You haven't had the cigar. Let's do it. You've had everything else on the shelf. You've had everything else in the humidor. Let's do these two. I'm not ashamed of this pairing, but at the same time, the cigar by itself was better this afternoon. The whiskey, I would imagine, by itself might be a little bit better. They don't go poorly together, but by themselves, I think they're going to, like you guys have already hit on, you could probably pair the cigar up with something else. You could probably pair up the bottle with something else in your portfolio even. Yeah. I agree. So I'm not saying they don't pair poorly together, but I mean, we could definitely do a little bit better now knowing what this bottle tastes like. Yeah. So that's where I'd be at.
So I've actually gone back and looked at my notes.
Let's roll back the tape. What do we got?
And found when the three of us had each of the other Starlight products on.
What do we got?
So Starlight, the bottled and bond. Steve, you gave an 8.5.
Okay.
Josh, you were 8.7. I was a 9.
Okay. 8.7.
On the I think he was just trying to make Jonathan Herring drink.
Could be. Who's not on tonight.
On the cigar batch, the 113, Steve was a 9. I was 9.5. Josh was 9. And then on the 114, they were flipped. You guys were both 9.5, and I was 9.
Okay.
Yeah, so based on those, based on the 4 bottles, like Steve, this would be like tied for last from Starlight for you.
Again, that's kind of what I'm saying. I think that's spot on then. So I'm glad that's kind of where it worked out because, just off of recollection, that would stand very true.
Yeah. But then this rates pretty much. So 3 out of the 4 Starlights, I've given a 9. 1, I've given a 9.5. So this bottle fits right in line with all my other ratings on Starlight. Same with you guys. So I think that says a lot about the consistency of what they're doing. Yeah. Like, even though each of their bottles have been different from one another, they've all been very, very good bottles.
Sure. Absolutely. It's a good point. I appreciate you keeping those notes because it's fun to look back at that. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome, Nate.
All right, so we still have a little bit more of this cigar. You look like you still have some, right? You going there?
A little bit.
It actually burns for a while.
It does.
Yeah, it's again the construction's great on it.
It's that 55 ring gauge.
It's got to be the 55 ring gauge. They must know something. I'm gonna put it up here again as we round out part one. I want to thank our sponsors. We've got Tinderbox at Easton. Again, Columbus, Ohio. Big event coming up, the Smoking 10 event on Saturday, March 19th. If you guys have not secured your tickets, quickly running out of VIPs. There's probably 40 out of 150 tickets for VIP. And those were sold in the first 8 days being on sale.
Cool.
So again, I mean, big response from VIPs because everyone knows they go quicker. General admission, we still have about 2/3 left, I'd say. So again, plenty of time on the general, but don't wait because again, you want to make sure you plan it and get in there. The VIPs are going to be 10:30 a.m. to 6. Again, you get more cigars, a few limited and new release cigars in that package for the VIPs. More swag, higher end swag bag stuff. Can't really release any of that information. That's very secretive.
Well, and for the people that are unfamiliar with it, some of the companies like say Altadis or some of the other ones, the VIPs get a different cigar than what general admission does.
Yeah,
so,
higher end limited. Yeah. The general will get, again, premium cigars from all the companies. Again, from Altadis, they're going to get a top 25 cigar aficionado from this last year. That's going to be going to the general admission. And there's going to be a brand new cigar that has not even shipped yet. That'll be at the 10 event for the VIPs. So again, check that out. You guys can contact Tinderbox at Easton through social media. You can call them 614-475-7872. Forgot the phone number. Or you can email them eastontinderbox@gmail.com, or you can just contact the podcast or myself through any of the social media stuff, and I'll point you in the right direction. My cell phone's been ringing on. People have my cell phone like they're like, you at the store? They just call my cell. Cool. Altadis USA, that's Josh Bentley, as well as the company he works for. Thank you for the support. You see behind us the Montecristo, obviously the logo above me. You have Romeo Julieta, H. Upman, Aging Room, and many, many others. St. Louis Ray, Butera, Onyx,
Trinidad.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of great stuff coming from Altadis, one of the biggest portfolios and biggest brands or biggest companies in the game. Fantastic company. And Josh, we appreciate that support. BS Cigar Company, again, the gold and silver. The gold's made by Plasencia and the silver's made by Espinosa. Plasencia, we're smoking a lot of the Plasencia stuff recently on the podcast. Love the tobacco, love the stuff coming out of those factories, whether it be straight from them, from BS Cigar Company, or through like Montecristo and other projects that Altadis is working on with them. BS Cigar Company is available at Tinderbox East and a couple other shops here in the Columbus area, or you can contact BS Cigar Company at gmail.com or contact the Tinderbox and we will get some out to you. We've been shipping a lot of those lately, which is fantastic. They now come in boxes as well as bundles. So fun to have the boxes back for the golds right now. Buyjack.com/bourbon and BS. That's on the page there. The new hoodie. Kind of have a glare on that, but this is the barrelhead black camo hoodie. I don't know if it really translates really well on the screen, but love this. Just got it finally today. You're very gentle.
The shadow kind of
gentle. And then also the shirt. All right.
You're just trying to
You're covering the logo.
You're just trying to touch Steve's chest.
And then we got the pink shirt that we've got on Nate. That's no longer available, but we have a new charity shirt, which is going to be Kelly Green. And that's going to be the Pour One More, Light Up Another. We'll figure this out together. That is a $30 t-shirt going to St. Baldrick's Foundation for charity dollars. $10 will go to that charity once we get through Patty's Day and the Smoking 10 event. We'll pull that off and hopefully do another charity. I love that project. There's also other shirts on there. They got the new 3/4 sleeves for the BS Cigar Companies on there in 3 different color schemes. Love that. You guys have been a big support. I will ask you, hearing from buyjack.com, they are dealing with some supply chain issues as well. We're using some stuff that's not usually in stock with them, so they have to go to their suppliers because I'm picky on what we get on that as far as availability. And then again, patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast or Venmo at bourbon and BS. So many sponsors, and you guys are the biggest one. We appreciate that, guys. Cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday.
Cheers.
Stay tuned
for 4 year.
Happy 4th year anniversary. My goodness. Come a long way.
We made it.
Orange Jake's words, we made it. Guys, we'll see you on part 2. Quick intermission on the live, and we will be talking about when enough is enough.
When enough is enough.
You guys have about 5-10 minutes to think about what you want to say on that. Guys, cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah,
Clear.
my mother-in-law's heard so much about the 10 event and food. She thought about buying a ticket just for the 10 event for the food, and then
Ship food.
and then give me the cigars. And then I told my wife, I was like, I don't think she'd be able to handle the smoke, even just getting in line for the food.
I'm bringing a plate to her outside.
You get those lamb lollipops?
Yeah, we have the lamb lollipops on the buffet.
Oh yeah.
And as I've been told by Fido, this might be the last year if they keep increasing in price.
Yeah.
Because all the meat is, but I mean, lamb was already an issue 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Getting pricier, but
and
I'm sure they'll be rationed. But they will be available. The lamb lollipops will probably be rationed like 2, maybe 3 per customer, just so everyone gets some. He said
nobody needs more than that.
Tell that to Alan Gold from Lotus, who is coming. I'm gonna have to give him a warning.
Get him and Salvo next to each other.
Yeah. That'll be fun.
Boy.
Just set up a camera right by there just to document that, be a fly on the wall.
One of the other things I think is cool about the tickets is I remember in the past, like after when I first started Tinderbox, gearing up for that first 10 event that I was part of the Tinderbox, some of the regulars that were in the shop, they were talking about they wanted to do VIP, like even if it wasn't for the extra cigars and extra meal, like they would pay the $90 extra charge just to be able to get in a couple hours earlier than everybody else.
Yeah.
Because that means they get first dib on seats, first dib on the sales table, which some of the sales are just absolutely ridiculous. Brian's been talking about some of those, and holy cow.
Yep.
That was one of the things he even said to Josh today, when we were talking about it. He's like, so you're not going to be upset if we're selling some of these, cigars that you're featuring at a heavily discounted rate at the sales table for one day only. And no.
We talked about this.
Oh, the lighter, the H up and the lighter that.
Oh, it's
Jesus.
on the DL. Huh? Hey,
this is not going to say how you get it, but there might be some of those lighters floating around the tent.
This is just in the intermission, so the audio listeners aren't going to get it. It's a bonus to the Facebook and YouTube listeners.
On that note, make sure you bug Josh the entire day about the letter openers and say you saw him on the Bourbon and BS podcast. We have 3 Montecristo Espada letter openers. First thing, man, if you guys listen to the podcast and you're part of the VIP, make sure that you get your swag bag, get your tickets, find your seat or don't, and just go straight to the Altitude table and get one of 3. Those things hopefully will be gone within the first 2 minutes. So that's one reason to get in line early.
That'll be neat.
The 10 opens at 10:30, but I wouldn't wait until 10:30 to get in line.
Well, I remember the last 10 event that we actually had. I think it ran from 4 to 10, and the shop was completely packed from the time the shop opened at 10 o'clock.
That's right.
Packed, and then at about 3 o'clock we started allowing people to get in line.
Yeah,
and the store just cleared out. Like everyone was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna."
Yeah, because 2020 we had to.
We were in the front.
We're in the front.
Yeah.
The day the world stopped. It was. Yeah, the restaurants closed down at the end of that event in Ohio.
I remember that. We were watching it.
We got it in. Just squeaked that.
We did the best we could with what we had.
Talk about calling an audible.
It was pretty cool.
That was a hell of an audible.
Cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Grab that bottle. I'm gonna pour one more.
Pour one more.
The things you come up with when you're drinking. I remember a real quick story for those who don't know it. Jake Sanders, who started this podcast with me originally, now 4 years ago, who is the GM, I think now.
Yes.
Burn.
Yes.
In Indy. So Burn Lounge by Rocky Patel in Indianapolis. But he was texting me, and I think I was at Fido, actually, of all places. And I was like, sipping on some pints. And he's like, man, what do we want to put on the shirts? We need to get shirts and all that stuff. So I went on a company that I'd worked with before, and I just started writing down sayings. And within 5 minutes, I typed that up and sent it to him. He's like, how long have you been working on that? I was like, since you texted me 5 minutes ago. He's like, it's great. All right. Have a good night, man.
Well, and because I had ordered the charity green one, but it hasn't shown up yet.
Yeah.
So I wore the charity pink one.
I like
that
it.
way I'm wearing a charity shirt while I'm waiting on my other charity shirt.
Josh said he's going to maybe sport that green charity shirt at the 10 event too.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's what my plan is. I'm luckily, no matter what the weather is, it doesn't matter to me because I'm going to be running the store that day with Josh that works at the center box, not you. Because there's going to be because it's a Saturday, so we still got to do normal business.
Yeah, 10 to 9
because it's Saturday. The last time we did the event, it was on a Sunday, so not as busy on Sundays as Saturdays.
Right.
So Saturday closes down at 6 when the event's over.
Yeah, so Saturdays it's going to be like a normal shopping day inside the store, but also to the listeners out there, I've been told there's going to be some 1 day only box specials that day. So
Saturday, March 19th is the day to be at Easton if you're a cigar smoker.
Yeah, because so
I'd buy a ticket, but also
yeah. So that's another reason. So it doesn't matter what the weather is. I'm going to be comfortable inside the store. But
doesn't
the
matter what the weather is,
downside,
we're gonna have a party.
The downside of that is I got to make sure the other Josh and I got to make sure there's a runner that can actually bring us food. Otherwise, we may not eat all day.
Things you have to sacrifice sometimes.
Because that
pack
happened.
a lunch, my friend.
Yeah, that happened the last time. Is we were hoping Ryan would bring us food, and then Ryan would get distracted.
Well,
squirrel.
There you go.
So we end up getting just whatever was left over, which is like the foot-long hot dogs.
All right. Well, there's the big ask from Nate out there for anyone that's going to be at the 10 event. They're going to need some food in there, I guess.
If you are going to the 10 event and you bring me food before a staff member brings me food, I will buy you a cigar.
There you go. Perfect. All right. Let's have a moment of silence.
Cigar of my choice, though.
Not for any. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 208, part 2, Beyond the BS. Topic tonight's going to be when enough is enough. And I'll introduce this with what I put on the feed there. And you guys can take it from there, and I will contribute what I can. We are still enjoying, I believe all of us, the Montecristo Espada Signature, which we reviewed in part 1. And so check out part 1. If you're listening to the audio, click back to part 1 for that. What you need there, Sean? What do you want? What do you want?
Sean, you've already smoked one. You smoked one before we did.
Nate. All right. What? Got caffeine in that whiskey? What's going on here? Don't throw it. I'm going to hand it to him. All right. That's a great intro, everyone. Great intro. All right. Yeah. Good thing we do this live in one take.
Spot on.
Now that that's over,
enough is enough.
we are, when enough is enough. Get the hell out of here, Sean. So, smoking the Montecristo Espada Signature. We are still sipping on the Starlight Distillery barrel pick by Frugal MacDoogal in Nashville, Tennessee is where they did that. But Starlight is based out of Indiana. And what was it? Norman?
It's Starlight.
Starlight,
Indiana.
Indiana.
They say
Borden. So, check out part 1. Click back to that. We're going to be smoking the Montecristo Espada, or Espada by Montecristo, as you guys call it.
Mm-hmm.
That was the original. And also the first 100% Nicaraguan Puro from Montecristo.
Yeah.
So very exciting. Love that. We're going to be smoking the newest size, which, as I think we've talked about on here, I think all three of us, not my favorite size, is a 6x60. But it's a very popular cigar size.
Yes,
so that's what we've got, called the Magnum, or what do you guys call this?
It is called the Magnum.
Magnum.
I brought a guard.
You brought which is a 6x50?
6x50, yes, sir. Yep.
So I'm going to open that as I'm smoking here. But I do want to thank our sponsors. Part 2, we do it a little quicker because it can take a little while here, is Tinderbox at Easton, where these cigars can be found in Columbus, Ohio. The Espada Oscuro, the Espada Signature is all available. In fact, we still have some of the Espada Estoque. So you can find that. Yeah. So that's going to be tough to find these days. But they also have a big cigar event coming up, Smoking 10 event. We talked about that in part 1. We talked about it in the intermission. I will say one of the little perks from listening to the podcast, we've got 3 limited edition letter openers that look like mini swords that Josh is going to have. If you're the first 3 people, one of the first 3 people in the 10 event on Saturday, March 19th, you can actually ask him for that letter opener. And hopefully he has not given all 3 away, but that's going to be a tough item to find And it's just a cool thing to have. If you guys aren't old school, you guys don't necessarily use a letter opener, now's your chance to have a really cool one.
There you go.
Act a little classy in your own home. Also, Altadis, which is Josh, Altadis USA, Josh Bentley, along with Montecristo, Romeo Julieta, H. Upman, Aging Room, and several other brands that you represent. Tonight we're featuring the Montecristo or Smoking That Espada in the second part here. So thank you, Josh and Altus, for the continued support and sponsorship of the podcast and being a guest on here so often.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I'm honored to be a part of it. I love to come on and do these new releases that my company has, and to have an opportunity to smoke them and rate them here first.
Yeah,
so
we enjoy that too.
Yeah, it's cool.
We already have one in the works coming up here, which
yeah.
is another exciting release from H. Upman.
New release, yeah.
So
don't give away too much.
All right, well, I mean, it's on the internet.
Yep.
But I won't. We're looking forward to having Josh
you
back
do the
on.
research.
All right. Also, BS Cigar Company, the Gold and Silver are available. You can find them at the Tinderbox at Easton, or you can have them shipped to you as well in a handful of shops around Columbus, Ohio, as we stand right now. But the gold is made by Plasencia, the silver is by Espinosa, and we appreciate you guys trying those out. I love both of them. The gold's kind of not the same blend as what we're smoking, but it's in that medium strength. All Plasencia, Nicaraguan tobacco. So that's the BS Gold. And then we have the silver, which is going to be more peppery, a little fuller. And that's going to be from Espinosa, who Eric Espinosa will be at the 10 event on Saturday, March 19th in Columbus, Ohio. Hopefully you guys can make that, buy your tickets before they are gone.
And debuting a new cigar.
And debuting another new cigar. So, yeah, a lot of excitement at that Saturday, March 19th, 2022 event, Smoking 10 event in Columbus, Ohio. Also, guys, I want to say who are listening for just part 2 on the audio, buyjack.com/bourbon&bs. That's where you can get this new hoodie that I've got on. It's black camo with the barrelhead logo. Tough to see with the glare right here, but you can see it at the top of the screen that way. If you listen to the audio, that makes no sense. It's in the top right of your screen if you're watching. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Vanna. And then also patreon.com/bourbon&bs podcast. That's going to be where you can do a monthly contribution, $5, $10, $25, whatever you want to do. There's 3 tiers, but you can put in whatever you want. One-time donation if you want us to buy a bottle, which I actually was corrected. I wasn't going to say it in part 1. I was corrected. This is not the purchase bottle on behalf of Kristen through Venmo. That is.
Oh, yeah.
So we got another one coming up. I didn't want to on part 1. I didn't want to have.
I revoke all my thank yous, Kristen.
Oh my gosh!
Have we featured the?
I bought this.
Have we featured the
Thanks,
bottle? Have we featured the bottle that someone else Venmo'd money for?
He didn't pick one out, did he?
No, he just Venmo'd money.
Oh. That money's gone, man. You got to do it again.
Thank you.
I think that money went to U-Haul for the propane. But if you wanna,
keeps you warm.
it does.
They're enjoying the propane right now. So
that's fair. But yeah, guys, thank you for the support. You guys are amazing, and also the best thing you can do, not only do that kind of support through the apparel or the financial support, is to share the podcast to everyone that you think would enjoy it, whether it be part 1, part 2. I know everyone gets different things out of this. Part 2 tonight, When Enough is Enough. This is something that I put it on the description for those that have read it. There's more of a common version of this concept when you even looked it up online, and this is the more common concept, I feel like, which is more about when a situation, relationship, or other circumstances, it's hitting a constant struggle, right? When do you figure out when enough is enough? Is kind of, I feel like the way that phrase is always used is kind of in a negative connotation of what's going on. And I think there is some value of trying to figure out when enough is enough. Or hopefully you don't get to that point. We can talk about that. It's how you try not to get to that point. What are the steps you do so you don't realize it too late? I also think, so we're going to be tackling that along with the other side of this version. How do you know what you are putting forth is enough? So whether it be in a relationship, whether it be like with your job, a lot of times there is this dynamic here where when enough is enough, I didn't want to put it in writing, but it's kind of like, when is enough enough? Because I don't like the repeated words right back to back. I don't like that, but you guys know what I'm saying. When is enough enough is that you get to that breaking point side of it, as far as maybe something not working well, your job, your career, your relationship, your friendship, your health. Like a lot of things we talk about in part 2, like when is enough that you actually say, all right, I got to change something. There's the other side of it is that what you're doing, is it enough in a job? Do you get complacent? Do you stop because you're teetering? I think this is one of those things. There's a teetering point that, do you think whatever you're putting forth out there in the universe, in the relationship, in the workplace, in your health and fitness, in your own, like, you know, the way you're eating, like nutrition, all these things, are you putting enough forward? Are you putting enough forward that now it's out of your control, and now we might teeter towards the other side, is that what you're getting back is now is when is enough of that? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a little bit in my mind, it makes a lot of sense. It sounds like I see it nodding in the garage. I mean, this is something that there is not just the one side that you're putting all the responsibility on the party on the outside, is saying, all right, enough is enough. I'm done. I need to figure out what I'm doing in this situation. The self-assessment side is, am I putting enough forward that my boss, the company, is going to be happy? Is my significant other going to be happy? Am I putting enough forward to my friends that are maybe struggling? Am I putting enough effort into my day-to-day nutrition, exercise, everything else? I think that's more of the self-assessment that will then sometimes, when you get to the other side, I'm sorry if I'm getting a little wordy here, when you get to that other side, when you're looking at the outside factors, sometimes it may be because you may not, when you do that self-assessment, you might not think that you put enough forward. And so is it, you know, again, I'm introducing kind of both sides of this.
Mm-hmm.
You got a microphone out there, Shannon, if you say you like it. What do you got out there, buddy? And you guys as well in the comments.
So when you were talking about that opening statement there, I was going back to when I left the trucking world.
Yeah.
So I was in it for 20 plus years. I was good at my job. I made great money. I had a great life. But I always knew there was something lacking. It was only going to go so far in that career. I kept thinking about the barbering thing in 2016, but I kept putting it off. I was like, I'm too old to go to school, you know, learn a new career. It's just, do I want to give up what I have now for a what if? But that dream never went away. So in 2019, I did give it all up and went to school because I knew the trucking career was great, but I was always going to hold a steering wheel and it wasn't going to take me anywhere in life I wanted to go. But now with this new career, when I look back, this is the greatest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
So trucking was not enough. It was enough at the time, but it would never be enough in the end.
What was the struggle there?
With the trucking?
Yeah. Was it just that was it the fulfillment? Was it you were stagnant? You didn't like your day to day? Was it that there was something else out there that was calling you, or
it was stagnant.
What was it?
I felt like my life was more than just holding that steering wheel.
Yeah.
Like, it was a great job. I loved working there. It wasn't the company, but I knew what the end was. Even when I reached the highest echelon of that job, that was it. There was no more room to grow. So money-wise, it would be the same job day in to day out. And I knew that's just not what I didn't want anymore. I mean, you know, growing up in my household, everybody in my house was some type of truck driver in that field. I was kind of stuck in that same rut. And I didn't have the wherewithal to dream bigger.
Yeah.
Until I got with my wife, and she was always pushing me to, you know, you're bigger than this. You got dreams, chase them. And I just kind of pushed that off the side. I'm just a truck driver. But that all came to a head, and then I finally just got the balls and made that decision.
It's great to have that kind of influence in your life too.
Yeah. Yeah, if it wasn't for her, I'd probably still be holding that steering wheel and getting up at, 5 in the morning and going to work. But here we are now, whole new career, new mindset. Now I'm very business oriented. I'm always looking to expand and do different things and grow. And I'm growing in different parts of my life I would have never grown in before. And it's been amazing.
it's tough to look back and necessarily when you had that moment, because I think sometimes retrospect will play a factor in this. Do you think that if you're with your wife Shannon, if you were truck driving, could you have made it work? If you stuck with that, would you have been in a like bad place long term, or do you think it would have?
No,
I'm only saying this because sometimes people look at the answer as a great change. Like, I need to cut this off. I'm at the like, when is enough? Sometimes there's not one right answer.
Right.
There could be a different change in your life. You know what I mean? I don't want to encourage everyone, because I think you have a great story, and you shared that on the podcast before when we had you on the first time, especially like in depth, all these things that, what got you to where you are now. I don't want to necessarily encourage everyone to just make a drastic change, because that's not always the right answer. Sometimes there's a process there. And I know you went through a process.
There was definitely a process, but when I look back at that life, that was a stagnant life of just wake up, work, that whole wake up, repeat kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's all it really would have been without any big dreams or goals. I didn't have any goals at the time. It was just go to work, make the money, pay the bills. And that was it. So now it's a whole different mindset of things you want to do, things we want to accomplish. We have goals, and that was never there before this. Ever.
It's very impactful. I mean, it is. It's scary.
Well, I remember I asked her in 2018. I think I said this on the podcast, but I told her, I was like, "Hey, I think I want to finally do this, go to barber school and all this other stuff." And I remember she just looked at me, and I was 42 at the time. She's like, "Well, you're not getting any younger, so what do you want to do?" I was like,
"Thanks, sweetie."
All right, babe. Let's get it. So,
wow.
So yeah, that's pretty much what it was. The driving factor was it was just stagnant. It was just I won't call it. It wasn't a boring life. It was just a stagnant kind of repeat, wash, repeat.
Yeah, and sometimes I think you can get through those slow moments. You know what I mean? I think that there will probably be. I know you're very motivated. I'm not saying this in a negative way. This is a more realistic way. What you're doing now, I don't want to say you're necessarily in the honeymoon phase, but I think there is something that where you are, it's very exciting still. 10 years from now, hopefully it still is. But you might have those ups and downs no matter what the career. I mean, Sean's sitting next to you. I mean, he had the same thing in the industry that he's back in. You know what I mean? And it's like something that, and I can get to the table here. And Sean, if you want to get in here at some point, I'm not saying right now, but there's something where, I know Sean, who's been on the podcast as well, he's in the audience in the garage tonight. My point of asking that was, there are some times where you can step away and you can get back into it, but you have to do it the right way. Yeah. And you have to do it a healthy way, and you have to do it out of first and foremost to take care of yourself. But, we talked about this, Sean, and again, if this comes to you later, if you want to share, but it's something that I look at that same thing with relationships. I look at career wise. Sometimes if you're, when it comes to your own personal mental health or physical health, sometimes you do need to step away from situations. Not necessarily with the intent to come back, but you never want to. If it's not terrible like that, like that's what I was asking. Like with the trucking career, you don't burn bridges and be like, fucking, I'm out of here. Same thing with relationships and all that stuff. You do it in the right way and say, this is not right for me right now, and I need to take care of myself first. But keep that door ajar, keep it available to you, whether or not you want to walk back through it. I'm not saying to keep all relationships, all careers, that way. But if it's just something that you really you yourself don't feel right, like you weren't stagnant, bored, not challenged in life, there's something there that maybe you are afraid to address it, but you were able to do it like Sean did with his career at the same time. It was just building up, step away from it. And then all of a sudden it feels right again because you were stagnant. You know what I mean? Like right now you could, Shannon, 5 years from now, you know what? I'm done with this. I had a bad experience, whatever it might be. I'll go back to driving truck. I know I can make money. Got another 10, 15 years of my career, make some money. I'm good with it. I did my thing. I'm not saying you will. I'm just saying that it's a way to address these things in life.
Well, when I left Jones, we were in such a good relationship we had together. And I remember I was halfway through school and I saw my phone ring. I was sitting eating my lunch. It said Jones on. I was like, crap, why are they calling me? Like, what, did I miss something? Did I forget to turn something in? And it was actually the head owner, Mr. Dick Jones, called me. And he was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I was like, "I'm just sitting here at school." And he was like, "Are you tired of cutting that fucking hair yet?"
So yeah. So
I was
again,
like, "No, sir." He was like, "Well, we could really use you back."
you could probably call him up tomorrow if you wanted to, which is, again, doing things the right way.
He ended it. He's like, we had a good conversation. At the end of it, he said, "Well, always know you always have a home here. So if you ever change your mind, come talk to me."
And again, realistically, that's amazing. Realistically, that opportunity might, like, if say that company or goes away or whatever, sells out, and you don't have that contact anymore. That's the thing, is it's not, you really do have to make a bold decision to step away from said job, said relationship, said whatever it might be, and know that that's not your long term. It's a step away momentarily. That's always going to be there. I mean, there is a risk there, and obviously you've really enjoyed the reward so far. Go on. Everything I say.
Actually, during school,
I love it.
There was a guy that came in, always brought his son, and I wasn't cutting him at the school, but my buddy was. We just started talking, and he was actually an owner of one of the probably third largest dump truck company in Columbus. And he found out I used to drive and do all the other stuff. And he literally on the spot offered me a job and said he'd pay me X amount of dollars, which was crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm poor as shit in school. I really had to think about it.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, really, I went home, talked to my wife. I talked to one of my teachers, and he's like, "Don't get caught by the devil, man. Just keep your head down."
Some temptation there, right? The easy.
Yeah, and he was like, "I got a brand new truck. I'll pay you $30 an hour. No questions asked."
They're paying more right now.
Yeah. Well, this was 2 years. This is 2019.
Yeah.
So
from what I hear on the news and see on the back of trucks, they're paying more.
To really talk myself off the ledge of that.
No, you stuck to your convictions. I love it.
So,
Josh, I don't know. Are we allowed to talk about this? I mean, you kind of stepped away from the industry. Are you allowed to or no?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So Josh, you guys don't know this, and I'll let Josh kind of explain it. But so when I first met Josh, it was actually you and I came into the cigar industry around the same time, about 9 years ago.
Yeah,
right?
2012.
Both enjoyed cigars before we got into it. Got into it for different reasons, different areas of the business.
Yep.
And then you were with. Can I say the company or no?
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
So you were with Oliva Cigars.
Yep.
At the time, and it was cool. Like another guy you're close with, he's been on with you a year ago or so, was Lee Whitaker.
Yeah.
Who was at the time with General Cigars.
Yep.
So we all kind of came into the premium cigar industry around the same time together. Again, I was just, the manager at one of your accounts, but it was cool to kind of like, we're all similar ages. You know what I mean? Like you guys are younger. I think Lee might be, is he younger? Is he 30s?
No. He's
55.
Somewhere around there.
No. So we're all around the same, similar ages, but it was cool to kind of get into it around that same time with some of these guys that now 9 years later, I consider very good business relationships, also friends. I mean, we've had a lot of heart to hearts over the time.
Yep.
So then Josh steps away from it at one point. How many years ago was that?
2017.
And I'm sitting there like, dude, he had a great job. Like, what is going on? So we don't have Josh as the Oliva rep.
Yeah.
And kind of talk about that.
Yeah. So, going back to the start, I was young and first in the industry and had an opportunity that was quite rare at the time and went into an interview and spoke my piece. This is me. This is what I have the ability to do. But I will state, I said, in 5 years, I don't want to be in the same position that I am in or that I'm entering in right now. And so it was something that I stated, and I don't know how loosely I stated that. I don't know how much I was going to stick to my guns.
I think it was, you could have been much like you are still today. Like you are very driven and all that. And
yeah. And
you also make your intentions well known in a respectful way.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't disrespectful at all. It was just a statement. And it just so happened at that 5 year mark or just around that 5 year mark, I had an opportunity that lied outside of the industry, and I took the opportunity. And looking back, I don't know that it was the tagline is enough right now, but I knew the opportunities that lay before me at that moment did not equate to what I was okay with at the time, and I wasn't seeing myself growing as I thought I should as a leader, and so I took the opportunity and I exited the industry in a what I would say a very respectful manner.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity, and so I went to the powers that be for my company, and just said, hey, now's the time, and I have this opportunity. I would like to take it, but never ever would I leave you just high and dry and just say goodbye.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that my position is well taken care of, that the company was left in good standing. And so I got to name and train my successor. And that was something that I prided myself on. I know some people didn't necessarily take it that way. That's just business.
Yeah.
And it was a personal decision that I had to make for myself. And at that point and given time, it was the right thing for me to do. And so I took that opportunity, I took that leap, and exited the industry. Things didn't work out as I thought that they would. And I found myself in 2018 looking to get back into the industry. And so I reached out to the powers that be in the industry, and I asked if there were any opportunities. And by God's grace and an opportunity presented itself that I jumped on. It wasn't ideal in any sense or fashion, but it was an opportunity that I took to go and work for a manufacturer in a different area. And I jumped on it and did it to the best of my ability. And through that opportunity to get back in the industry, something else, another opportunity presented itself. And I got to come back home and now work for the great company that I work for today, Altadis USA.
So you mentioned in 2012 when you started with Oliva, you mentioned that in 5 years you wanted to move up. Within 5 years, you wanted to move up and be in a different role. So I'm thinking about, for those not very familiar with the cigar industry, my experience, the company that I used to work for in that same role, you were either it was sales rep, and then you were the national sales manager. That was it. There was no in between. So what kind of opportunity to move up were you looking for in the industry? Because I know bigger companies have more opportunities.
Yeah.
So what opportunities were you looking for within that company that would have kept you there?
And that was the thing. I didn't really have a point of reference. I didn't have, something that I knew that I wanted to be doing. I just knew my leadership skill set at that point and given time was greater than the position that I was fulfilling. And, I was doing my job to the best of my ability and exceeding expectations through that role. Blowing it out of the water, numbers wise, growing double-digit growth year over year. So I wasn't really, I guess I would say, that concerned, Nate, with what the opportunity that it was. But I just wanted something. Now, I will say that the person that interviewed me that I made that statement towards wasn't in that same position, right, when I went to exit the company. And so, that discussion wasn't furthered there wasn't really an opportunity to grow at that point in time with that company. And so, that opportunity that presented itself, I just took and I think that the challenges that presented themselves through that opportunity for me to leave, the challenges that I endured, when it was time for me to get back into the industry, have made me not only a better person, overall, as a human being and as a person in my family, but a better salesman and then a better leader overall through those challenges. Because I've learned from that,
Yeah.
right? And I've really dove into the process, right? That it's learning in the process.
Yeah, I think that's something, again, when enough is enough. Not necessarily where you're having a terrible experience with Oliva or with your, that position.
Quite the opposite.
And it wasn't even the fact that, there's a couple things that I've taken away from both Shannon's sharing and Josh. I have my own experience. I know, Nate, you have yours. Everyone out there has their own as well. But you challenged yourself and you had something else outside, calling you in a sense, and you gave it a shot. But again, recurring thing, didn't burn a bridge. You didn't try to just be like, fuck it, I'm out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you didn't let it go too far that you would have resented that company if you passed up on what you wanted. At the time, you're like, this is a great opportunity for me, right?
Yeah.
That ended up not working out, but you also weren't stupid about it, and you just said, no, I'm safe, and I'm going to keep doing this. And all of a sudden, there's the resentment factor. There's this whole thing that you missed out on an opportunity that you didn't know would or would not work out. You had no idea. This is a hypothetical at that point, but you gave it a shot. You did it the right way. And again, I think this is something that we're talking about careers here. I don't want to necessarily, we all know those relationships that they break up, get back together, all that stuff. You know what I mean? But I think that's a little different. When you're talking about business, you do it politely, professionally. You did it a way that, you didn't do it with the sense of this, if it doesn't work out, I'll just go back to Oliva. I'll just go back. No, as this was going, you gave it your all. You learned, like you said, you learned from the experience. And then you ended up back in an industry that at this point is potentially the rest of your career.
Yeah. An industry that I love, that I'm very passionate about, and I think it shows through, my work.
Yeah.
I ended up at a company and a manufacturer that is sharing that passion.
That's awesome.
And that I'm very grateful, for the opportunity. I'm grateful for where I've ended up. And I talk about that process, the process that I went through. I'm grateful for that opportunity to have gone through that that challenge. Although it was a challenge and there were a lot of hard times.
Yeah.
Some tears in that process, but going back and looking at that process now, it's made me who I am today.
What's fun about that experience too, if I remember correctly, I didn't even know you were with that brief stint with another company, but I know I was one of many that when there was a position that opened up with Altadis, and again, manager of one account, I don't even own the place. I just, I work at Tinderbox at Easton, if you will, but I had a relationship with Paul Waller through this, right?
Yeah.
And, and all this, I know I was one of many that, super impressed with everything that is, you were getting back in the industry. Not only did you have the resume, and not only did you have the work ethic, not only did you do the things the right way, but you impressed, not everyone. You can't please everyone, but there's just a resounding thing that if anyone from Altadis was reaching out to accounts like, what do you think of this person? And they didn't, but it was, I think your name was being thrown around without you knowing it necessarily that, I don't know if he's available. Josh Bentley would be the guy, yeah. So it's the way
cool.
you conduct yourself, and that's for all of you. It's how you conduct yourself. But
yeah,
that's really cool to see. Again, different things. That's why I wanted to bring it up. And Shannon, he's now blossoming and flourishing and doing really well in this new career path. And you gave it your shot, and whatever the circumstances were, now you're back in the industry that you were in before and flourishing.
Yeah.
But you had to do that for yourself.
Yeah.
You have to listen to yourself. And that's the whole thing. When we talk about when enough is enough, it's not always a bad circumstance. Sometimes it can be a good one, but it's just not what you're feeling, and I think that you did it, both of you guys, Shannon and Josh, and probably a lot of you out there, you'll know that, this is a gamble. I've got a good thing going.
It's a risk.
It's a risk.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into mine as much, but I mean, that was me with the moving and storage industry. I didn't know what else I wanted to do, and I held on to that too long. And every time I was ready to kind of move on and not knowing what I wanted to do, but I knew I wasn't happy with what I was doing after like 2 to 3 years, I'd get a promotion. I'm like, all right, well, now I got this new challenge and I got re-engaged and all that stuff. 2 or 3 years later, same thing would happen. I'm trying to figure it out. Well, it got to the point where there were no other positions really to move, and things changed, and I'm not blaming anyone other than myself, but I know that I allowed myself to get stagnant. And Shannon, I know you have the mic, but I want to kind of introduce that. If you wait too long, again, those stagnant, the low times, they can come back up, right? But if you just keep getting that point, I got to the point when enough is enough that I wasn't happy with my potential future anymore, but I didn't take that move. So I got to that point in that career where it was either me or them, I feel like. And at me personally, I was still capitalizing on all the opportunities financially, like the goal set and all that stuff. But I was doing that and we were still hitting it. Well, I wasn't myself. And that sometimes will happen if you allow yourself to get too stagnant. You don't have that drive, which kind of branches off, not necessarily switching gears in part 2 quite yet. And I don't want to go, way into the evening, but I will say that if you don't, then it goes to the other side of that. In the beginning of the intro of this is when I said, is what you're doing enough, what you're putting forth enough? Because then all of a sudden, if you don't, sometimes the other party involved, whether it be your employer, the significant other, or whoever you're, the friendship or whatever it is, now all of a sudden you get stagnant. Now all of a sudden you're not putting enough in there. And now it's someone else's call is when is enough from what you're putting out there. It's a slippery slope, man. It really is. There's a lot of self-assessment out there of what you need to do.
Well, I know for me in my first career, when I was working in a lab, it was about 5 years into that position where I was no longer happy doing what I was doing. And I wanted to do something else. But while I was pursuing other opportunities, I was also still bettering myself in the position that I had.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked for that first employer for almost 8 years. And so 5 years in is when I decided I wanted to make a change. But then for the next 3 years, I didn't just let myself be stagnant where I was. I was still, doing the tests to get certifications. I was still getting certified on new techniques. I was still doing everything I could to be as good at that job as I could, but I knew that that was only going to get me so far. So I still wanted to pursue other opportunities while I had the opportunity to make it my choice rather than a necessity.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to, when I first started feeling unhappy with the position, I didn't just quit and say, okay, that's it. And now I'm just going to go find another job. No, I was still doing my job and doing it to the best of my ability. I wasn't slacking on the work I was doing. I still had pride in what I was doing, but I was pursuing something else because I knew the opportunities were very, very few in front of me. So I wanted to take a chance, and kind of like what Shannon talked about, like I could have stayed at my position at my previous employer for years if I wanted to. I just wasn't happy doing it.
Yeah.
Eventually, like I could have kept making a little bit more money, maybe got a promotion to another position. But it was only going to get me so far. And pay will only keep you happy for so long.
So let me expand on that, right? Then you continue. Pay or material possessions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, I've had this, and again, I don't want to branch off into relationships necessarily, but a lot of times people, you know, they think the grass is greener type thing, and they're like, well, if I was with someone else, it'd be easier because so and so would make more money, or they have nice things, or whatever it is. Well, I know a lot of rich people that get divorced. You know, I mean, like we all know that.
Yeah.
And it's more expensive. Just so you know, like there more money, more problems. Exactly. I said that wrong, but yeah, I'm not saying just divorce, but the people that they think that everything's good, and like you're taking you everything's so easy financially. Well, you still have to kind of water the relationship, if you will.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so when you say that same thing with career, business wise, yeah, the compensation financially is one thing. If you wake up and don't want to go in, that's a problem. If you have the white picket fence and the 2.5 kids, you know what I mean, but you still don't want to wake up next to that person, you got the same problem. Finances don't fix everything. You know what I mean? That's why I wanted to interject there is that, pay in the business world, or just, hey, yeah, we got more money than we know what to do with. Well, you can still be miserable.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other aspects.
Well, and my current employer, I was in a position for 7 years, and I'd actually multiple times interviewed for other positions within the company. And it was like, there was only so many times I was going to deal with getting passed over before, I wanted to make a switch. And so like a couple years ago, when I got passed over for being the manager of the team I was on, like for me, that was kind of the spark that then made me want to pursue something else. Because in my time with the company, anytime I got passed over for a position, within 2 or 3 years, that person was either out of the position or out of the company.
Yeah.
Like they had left. Whereas I always feel myself, I get this a little bit from my parents. Like I'm one of those people that I don't look at the next step as just a step to keep going up.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to do the next step, but I'm going to be there for a while. There's going to be some stability.
Some loyalty there too.
Yeah. Cause at one point in 4 years with my previous position, I had 4 different managers and then 3 different managers over them in a 4-year time period.
It's interesting.
And so like that was one of my that was one of the things I talked about when I interviewed for that position was, okay, this person was here for this long. This person was here for 6 months. This person was here for 2 years. Like, I'm not someone who's I don't look at this job as just a stepping stone for the next position. I look at this job because I want to have this job and I want to actually have this for a while. Eventually I may get to the point where I want to do more, but I want to provide some stability to this team that there hasn't been in a long time.
Right. But so you give it all to that position.
Yeah.
But again, you can get stagnant. It was kind of like my
and that's what happened with that position. After I got passed over, like there was only so much I could continue to do with that position. And being where I was and performing the level I was performing on that team, it wasn't getting me anywhere on that team.
Understood.
So that's when I made the decision to where I'm going to go to another team, starting from the bottom, but I'm now on another team that now I can grow in that position, because being in that position with my, building off my previous experience, now I have more avenues I can go. I'm not as pinholed into one area of the company.
So yeah, you sometimes take that step back to hopefully have more steps available to move forward. I want to bring up some comments here. We've got some great stuff, and we've got some feedback. This is really cool. Real quick comment there. Tim Dodge, loyalty in work and relationships is a key characteristic for success. I agree with that. I do want to say, Tim, and he had great words to say about you as well, Josh, when you walked back into the local shop.
Yeah, love Tim.
You know where Tim's at. Yep.
Yeah.
But so,
Love you, brother.
I agree with that, Tim. And as Josh just stated, there's love that way. There's also love that way. A lot of support there. So what you're saying, loyalty in work and relationships is a key characteristic for success. It has to be two-sided. That is a big factor of that. If you're loyal, in work and relationships, and the other party is not, that's a problem. It has to be, a two-way street.
You can only be loyal for so long.
I know, and
Yeah.
I don't think that he meant that as like you stay loyal and get beat up over and over. But I mean, there are people that stay in that. I mean, there's that classic. It doesn't have to be big emotional abuse or physical abuse, but there are, that's a big aspect of people that stay in abusive relationships. They stay in abusive job work environments. You know what I mean? That because they are the fear of the unknown. You don't leave because you're like, well, it's better to get a paycheck. It's better to be in a relationship. I better have, I still have a roof over my head. If I leave this relationship, if I leave this job, I don't have a paycheck. I don't have support. And now I'm on my own. And that fear of the unknown or the opportunity out there is something that you stay too loyal to some party that you shouldn't be loyal to anymore.
Well,
you're not loyal to yourself.
I think in the job industry, that's been a big change.
And Tim says he agrees. Yeah,
I think that's been a big change in generations, because I know, like, with my parents and their parents and stuff like that, like, they were the ones where they were working for one company for 25, 30, 35 years. Like, I remember my dad, he worked for UPS for 34 years, was a driver for 28 of those years.
Right.
But I remember as a kid growing up, him complaining about, almost daily about what was happening at work. Too many stops, them expecting those to be done in too little of a time window. And then all of a sudden he gets a manager that rides along with them and they realize, oh shit, that's not feasible. But because that afforded them a certain lifestyle, they stuck with it. Even though
that's what we're talking about.
Even though there was so much shit, because it afforded them a certain lifestyle, they just stuck with it. I think the younger generations now, including ours, we're more likely to jump ship regardless of how good the money is if we're not happy.
They can't hear you. I will comment while Shannon picks up the microphone. When I was in charge of a sales staff at my previous career, there were some really, really good salespeople. So like that, I was at one of my positions at the moving company was head of sales and marketing. And so I was in charge of not only the marketing side of it and the office side of it, but I was also in charge of like inside and outside sales. And I had a handful of people that came in with that mentality where it was like they were there, and I look at the resume and it's like, oh, you got a great resume. You're here for 2 years, and now you're here.
They're going to leave us in 2 years.
Almost every time.
Yeah.
Always grass is greener. I'm going to be here. I didn't get advanced, or I'm not making as much as I thought I would be in 2 years. It's like, that's not where you're at. So if you have that instant gratification side of it and you can just jump ship, there is a balance there of the, you start with a company and you retire with the same company. And also I keep moving on and on and on. I always am looking for the next best thing.
So what I see is it begs the question.
And I do want to get back to the comments for those who are listening.
Is loyalty rewarded?
If it's reciprocated.
Right.
That's going back to the Tim Dodge comment.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, loyalty. Hang on, loyalty in work and relationships is a key characteristic for success.
I will bust my ass for a company as long as they bust their ass for me as well. They have my back.
And I look at that as, it has to be reciprocated on a consistent basis, because if it's not, there will be resentment on either side based on the stagnant reciprocation of that reward. If there are some people that are complacently happy, they don't want to be the top dog. They don't want the promotion. They're happy getting the paycheck so they can have their life, and they just do it for 20, 30 years. And that is the type of person they are. There's other people that just want the next best thing. That's who they are. And they just go through life doing their thing. And there's some happiness, there's some unhappiness or sadness. There's all those things. but it has to be reciprocated. If you're going to be loyal to that other party, it has to be reciprocated to the point that there is the pats on the back. There is in the business world, there's the bumps in pay. There's, whatever it might be. If there's a lifespan or a shelf life to just being in that moment. You know what I mean? Because typically if you stay in that moment and both parties aren't okay with that, they're not communicating. First time we're bringing up communication in the part 2.
Yep.
But that's a big part of it. If you don't communicate that you want more, or, hey, why don't we do this? You'd be like, hey, what do you want to do next? Or, hey, let's what opportunities do I have in this career? What's the next step in our life together with a significant other? We're going to buy a house. We're going to, get married, or we're going to do this. We're going to have kids. Like, if you're not communicating, not on the same page, there will be resentment that will basically be a very strong potential downfall for the career, for the personal life, whatever it might be. You let yourself go, or you let the relationship go, professional and personal, it will have basically atrophied to a point that it will not be able to be recovered.
Right.
Mostly because of feelings and resentment, because like I gave you this many years and you didn't do this. Well, if you speak up in a polite and professional, or a very polite and personal way, you can actually, it may not go over well the first time, but it's out there now.
I think with both with personal relationships and professional relationships, it comes down to a return on investment.
Mm-hmm.
Is the outcome worth the effort? Because a lot of people will sit there and go, if I bust my ass every single day, day in, day out for this many years, what's it going to get me? If it's not going to get me to a certain position in that personal or professional relationship, then why put forward the effort for those next 5 years?
But to Josh's point with Oliva, the 5-year thing, you have to make your intentions known. They will change over that 5-year period, like you said early on in your career, but you have to at least express those. Because if you're just sitting there, pouting that you didn't, you're in the same position 5 years later, not necessarily you, Josh, but anyone out there, if you have that inside of you that I want to grow, I need that, you got me, you're saying I'm doing a good job. 5 years from now, I don't want to just be doing the same good job and we're just in the same position. I want to grow with the company. And then if that lifespan has hit its peak and it's expired at that point, then you have to be prepared to go somewhere else. But if there's an opportunity for the investment in that employee, in that person in your life, well, hopefully you, as the other side of that, the other party, you will reward that if there's the capability to do it. If there's not, I don't want to have kids. Hey, I don't have any positions for you to be promoted to. We're a small business. Like, this is it. If you're happy doing this, let's keep going. If you're not, and you want something bigger and better, I will support you in that. And I will say, but what can I do to help you get to the next step? It's not with me. It's not with me as an employer, as a person. It's the capacity there. That's the question. Is there a capacity in that person or in that business that you can expand within them? Or have you exceeded the capacity and now all of a sudden it's like you have a choice? So you're going to stay with it and just not be fulfilled, but that position is filled? I don't know.
Well, I think that's, when you're on that ship, like, you're working on making corrections to where that ship goes. You're not just jumping ship. Yeah. But you have, like, if you're not happy where that ship's going, you have to make that known. And if they don't acknowledge that, they just ignore you for so long, then eventually it gets to the point where you get tired. Because I know in my position, like, I have expressed interest on, learning more about the position and having more responsibilities and doing more work. But I've kind of already gotten tired of begging for more things to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, okay, if you're going to, like, slowly drag this along for this time period, like, yes, I'm going to stay here and do my job the best I can, but I'm also going to look for a position that is
You got to take that step.
that is actually, something I want to do. That's going to give me, something I do that I feel fulfillment in.
Yeah. The first step is if you don't express the things you're unhappy with the other party, that's on you.
Well, and I had a conversation with my boss's boss last week about some of the things that have gone on in my current position. And one of the questions they asked me was, well, have you made your frustrations or opinions known?
There he is.
Yes, I have. I've done it multiple times. I'm not going to get on my knees and beg.
Yeah, that's
Like,
when you
I
made the decision to move. Yeah.
I've made my opinion known here. This is what I was expecting coming into this position. That has not happened, and it's a very slowly going process. Like, there's only so much I'm going to sit around and wait for them to take the next step.
Right. All right, Shannon, you got something that I want to go to the comments because we have some really active listeners out there that I want to introduce this, and I want to actually present Josh with a comment that I had out there for the panel here.
I was just going to say briefly, I think the days of the 15, 20 plus year careers are over. Nowadays, you got to factor in all the headhunters out there always trying to pull people from other jobs, and they're always presenting other opportunities or money or benefits or whatever might fit your wheelhouse at the time. So I don't think employers today look at, oh, you've had this X amount of jobs. You're seeing the experience and what you could add to the next team.
So I agree with that. I know what you're saying, but if it's all within the capacity of the business of whether it's that age old thing. It's like, well, I'm going to put my 2 weeks. I found a better opportunity. They throw you more money. Well, what if we give you this? It's like, well, again, resentment. Why didn't you do that before? I have to come to you and tell you that I'm leaving. That now you're going to change.
Well, so that's sometimes the catalyst that will move the needle.
It
right?
can be.
That and unfortunately, it shouldn't have to come to that.
But it's business, and if they, I know.
But it is, and so then then that goes back to the person's personal position that they're in, and the lens that they're looking at it through. It goes back to their loyalty, right, to that organization. And so, I feel that we keep going back to this loyalty thing that Tim had brought up, and there is not much loyalty in the new generation, right?
There's not.
What is it? Gen X?
I am, and sometimes
that are working
Gen Z plus 5. I don't know.
I don't know what.
In my experience, sometimes I've said this about myself. I think sometimes I'm loyal to a fault because I will stick with an unhappy situation just because I'm loyal to that company.
A lot of people are. That's where the community. That's what That's really cool. I heard that your current higher up expressed that. Have you made your position known?
Mm-hmm.
Now you have someone that's encouraging that. Communication. You still have to walk a fine line. You still have to be professional. You can't be like, well, they said this and blah, blah, whatever. I really want to bring up this comment here. So it's a big one. I don't know if it'll fit on the screen here. That's a lot. But it's a lot of, I read this and I'm trying to bring it back up here. And of course now I can't. So let me bring this up. So when enough is enough, amazing topic and so subjective. I think this is what's, because it was forwarded to me. So subjective from person to person. How have the members of the panel dealt with situations where enough seemed to be definitely enough, taken action, then had doubts, either immediately or years later? I've experienced this in many aspects of my life, and I feel self-doubt is a natural thing. At least it has been for me. I struggle with trusting my gut instinct at the time where I know enough is enough. But then again, that doubt creeps in periodically as time goes by. How does the panel relate to that? And do you have any examples of how you've overcome that doubt and stayed the course rather than take the easy way out?
So I think, and then I'll let you speak. I think what Adam is bringing up here is risk versus reward.
The return
Right.
on investment.
The ROI. Go
Go
ahead, Nate.
No, what was that? The end of your?
Yeah. I just wanted to make that that statement. That's what I gathered from what Adam is.
Well, no.
Is
so how,
the
would you
juice
have any?
is the juice worth the squeeze?
Great movie.
right?
Great movie.
But
That's from a
I'll
classic
talk
called The
about
Girl
that.
Next Door.
But, so like when
It's
I
a great
left
coming of age story.
when I left my job working in a lab to get a full-time job in the cigar industry, I pursued that opportunity because it was a passion. That opportunity did not pan out like I wanted it to.
Mhm.
And it forced me into a position where I then was working for companies I didn't necessarily want to. I was working not necessarily for companies. I was working roles and positions that I didn't want to work. I had to work them out of necessity,
Mhm.
but I still did not regret the decision to jump ship from working in the lab because I was so unhappy for so long. I didn't want to work there, even though this new position, I knew that the situation I was in after that didn't pan out was going to be a short-term thing. Whereas if I'd have stayed with my previous employer, it would have been a long-term unhappiness. So then when I got my first position with my current employer, I knew that position was going to be a short-term opportunity.
Yeah.
Because no one sits there and does door-to-door sales for 20 years. That just you just
Back
don't
in the day,
well, depending on what you're selling, depending on what they're making.
great vacuums.
Oh, I can tell you some experience with those guys.
No.
But I knew that with what that position required from me, that was not a good situation. It's not something I was happy doing, but I was doing it looking forward to what could come from being in that position. And so I was in that position and then was able to make a move into another position that I was then comfortable and happy with. I did that position for so long because I've gone both sides to what Adam's comment was.
There you go.
I was with that position for so long that I then became unhappy and went to another position within the company. But because that change has not been as rewarding as what I thought it would be, part of me does resent making that change. But I know if I'd have still stayed in my previous position, I still would have been doing whatever it was I was doing, and there still wouldn't have been much of an opportunity to advance from that.
Yeah.
I'm just doing something else, but now I at least know that being in a new position, I have a new set of possibilities going forward.
Right. And so I bring up a comment from Ray as a response to that. I believe the doubt is always likely to be there no matter what the situation. It's never easy to make that break from something. Lots of self-doubt, questioning yourself, quote, is it me, end quote. Is it my fault? Could I change and make it work? These are all quotes, like thoughts. I think you need to have people around you who will support your decision. I could never have done it on my own. He brought up some things with his previous career where he had to make some cuts in his position. It was a massive cut, and he struggled with it, and he did it, and then they came back and asked him to do another one. And that was one of those things that he found that was the moment, I think, that he basically decided, not Ray, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but
Well,
it's like
it
you
wasn't-
have to make that change. I want to comment on that, Adam. To that, I don't know exactly. I've been there, I've seen this stuff, and do you have any examples of how you've overcome that doubt and stayed the course rather than take the easy way out? The easy way out is the wrong way, in my opinion. It has to be very, it has to be calculated. It has to be looked at. You can't just as soon as there is a sign of unhappiness or discomfort that you run away from it and go on to the next one. That is a very short-lived high. I mean, it's a high. You have that honeymoon phase of those things, whatever be career or relationships, but you can't just run away when it first starts showing signs of the real life, the stagnant opportunities. There are moments where it's no longer, Josh, you're a father now. You have a very, happy family life from the outside. You have a good career. You have had your struggles. You've had your nights you couldn't sleep. You've had your mornings that you were just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not putting words in your mouth. You haven't expressed those to me, but I can say just from a number standpoint, you have had those ups and downs. You've had your bouts with whether it be minor depression or whether or not, like, am I doing the right thing for my family? Am I doing the right thing for myself? These are all natural. There are people that will run away. They call that the easy way out. It's never easy on the other side of the out. I look at this as that you really have to assess all of these things. But I go back to the same thing. The biggest thing is, and I've listened to you guys on the panel here, is that you have to express your side of it. If you're loyal to a fault, like you said, Nate, or, what Adam's saying with this stuff is, if you don't express it, so if you express it and you just stick with that situation, again, we're on that the more negative side of the when enough is enough. If you just stick with it, it's going to be bad. It's not going to end up well because, again, I'm going to bring this right back in the conversation. If you don't express it, if you don't try to work with that other party, be an employer, whether it be a significant other, again, I want to touch on this on a personal level is, it's not right to eat the way you're eating, but you keep doing it, you will hit a breaking point. Hopefully it's not a very ill state of health, but if you don't if you just let it go without addressing the situation, it's going to end up bad every time. If you aren't active in your role of that situation, it's your fault at that point. You have to actually try. If you try, you express yourself, and it doesn't, if you address these things that he's saying, where the doubt comes in and all that stuff, if all you do is just take, that beating, you will be beat down. I'm not saying you have to fight back. I'm just saying you have to You have to actually express this is a problem. And again, going back to, I keep going back to Tim Dodge. I was listening tonight is that, about the loyalty, being a success in any type of relationship, but it is something that it has to be, as I've said many times already, has to be reciprocated. There's got to be a little bit of support. And if it's not from the other party, the employer, the significant other, if you're not actually supporting yourself, you will fail. That will push you to enough is enough. The outcome of enough is enough can be very positive if you are putting yourself first, not the easy way out way is that it's just about me. It's about your own happiness and making sure that, because again, I think that it's going to really quickly slide the other way if you just take it, because you won't be the same person. So you won't be the same employee. You won't be the same significant other. You will just be a beat up version of yourself when it comes to your own eating habits, nutrition habits, fitness, all that stuff. It's all very much parallel as far as the mental side of this. You will not be yourself. You have to grow as an individual, and the people around you, the career around you, your what you see in the mirror, and how you feel when you wake up. All of those things, it does start with you, and then it's a matter of how is everything else around you responding to what you need.
So,
hang on, Josh, you have anything on that?
Well, I was going in to say that self-doubt, I feel that you'll always have that question in the back of your mind, right? Mm-hmm. Is this the right move, right? Is the risk worth the potential reward, right? But the other factor that you have to take into account is regret, right?
Yeah.
If I don't take this risk, am I later going to regret my decision to not jump on the opportunity that's there?
Why would you regret it?
Right. Well, if the self-doubt and you gave in to that doubt and said, hey, I'm secure with where I'm at, right, in a career position. hey, although my habits are unhealthy, it's easier, right, to not make a move towards better health, right? Are you later down the road going to regret that decision of, hey, there was an opportunity that presented itself, but because of the self-doubt that I allowed to creep in, I stagnated. I shuffled my feet. I did not make a move because of the security that I had, because of the comfortable and complacency
Mhm.
that I had. I didn't make that move. Are you later going to regret that?
Yeah.
And that's the scale, I think, at that given moment.
Yeah. So Adam says, we're talking about his comment. You're absolutely right, Steve, and all of us. When you don't have an employer or significant other, it's on you to be true to yourself, to become the version of you that made you decide enough was enough. I'll take it a step further. Again, if you lose yourself if you don't communicate, if you just roll with it, you're loyal to a fault. Again, I want to reiterate this point, is that the other party, your employer or your significant other, will look at you as you are right now. Does that make sense?
Say it again.
Again, if you are, to your point, Josh, if you don't, I'm saying communicate, but if you don't take that chance or whatever it might be, you might regret it. I think that, again, the English language is it doesn't make sense a lot of times, but I think regret and resent are a letter off, in a sense, or a couple letters. I'm not writing it down, but very close. But regret and resentment, if you resent something or regret it, there's very much a parallel there again as well.
Yeah.
There's a difference between changing course and jumping ship.
The regret side is, if I would have done something, it's on you then. If I would have taken that risk, things could have been different. If I would have vocalized my unhappiness or my issues, it could have changed. Again, it all goes back to, in my opinion, action. You have to take action on behalf of yourself, because those people around you, your employer, your significant other, or if it's just you, if you don't take action, that's the regret, whether it be for another opportunity, or if you see this, when enough is enough, the more common concept of it is that you get to that point that enough is enough. I just want to make sure that everyone out there, myself included, I'm talking to myself out there, 10, 20 years ago, is that I, going forward, can actually make sure that it's not on me. The regret or resentment's not because of what I didn't do, whether it be for another opportunity or I see something building up. It's easy to blame other people. It's easy to blame, I'm working for the wrong people. I'm with the wrong person. It's not my fault I eat this way. It's my schedule. All of these things, it's always easy to project that anywhere other than inward.
I think sometimes with the generations now, the younger generations, like, we have such a disposable mentality that the first sign of a problem, we completely abandon that. We toss it aside.
Why?
I
Fear of confrontation.
that can be one of it.
Uncomfortable.
That can be it. But I also, one of the things I had written down was, smooth seas produce very poor sailors. So someone who's in charge of a ship, if the seas are calm, we got a Navy guy right here.
All right, Navy, come on, Dan.
If the seas are always smooth and there's nothing going on, like that, the captain in charge of that ship has then very limited experience.
What's the metaphor?
But that doesn't mean you necessarily drive the ship into a Class 5 hurricane if you're not able to withstand those outside forces.
What do you do? You train.
Yeah. So you have to realize that there's a difference between growth and hurt. Like, Steve, you work out a lot. There's a difference between weight training and, either maintaining a physique or, becoming better shape versus like just going so overboard that you actually hurt yourself and, set yourself back worse than you would have been before. So you don't necessarily jump ship at the first sign of a problem, because if the personal relationship you're in or the professional relationship you're in is worth the effort, there's going to be bumps in the road.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be situations that are not smooth sailing, but working through those problems is what helps develop you as a better person, as a better employee.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're someone who, you talked about, overseeing sales people, the people that jump ship every couple of years, like, why are they leaving? Well, either they're not getting paid what they thought they were, or they just look for another opportunity. Like, there's not a whole lot of growth that person experiences, because even though they may have 8 jobs in 20 years, they're still doing the exact same thing they were doing 20 years ago.
Yeah.
What have they actually grown? How have they actually developed? Well, they haven't, because they keep jumping ship. And the first time there's a problem, they're like, nope, I'm not dealing with this.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes those rougher seas will develop that person to be a better employee or to be a better significant other. I mean, if relationships ended at the very first sight of problems, then someone's probably going to go through their entire life just constantly jumping ship into another relationship. Right. Well, if they're constantly jumping into another relationship, there's no long-term happiness. There's no long-term development. There's no long-term growth.
Yeah, there's phases of growth.
Yeah. I mean, Josh, how long have you been married?
Jesus,
man.
So while Josh
Put me
thinks
on
about
the
that,
spot there,
while Josh thinks about that,
it's
so
awkward for everyone.
like I've been
very
16
happy
years.
multiple
16
years.
16
Very happy multiple years is how long he's been married.
So 16 years. Like, I've been married for 11.
Seems like yesterday, but it's
Amen.
Not all of those years have been smooth sailing. There have been some problems. There have been some rough seas, but that relationship is worth maintaining. And so you work through those problems, because then you both come out better on the other end.
well,
Potentially. Not every relationship is going to come out better on, like, there are some
What's that?
Yeah.
Amen.
There are some relationships that, like, you can only do so much, and then you have to jump ship because the ship is sinking. Like, you don't sit there and stay on the Titanic just because you're on the Titanic. Like, fuck, the Titanic hit an iceberg. There's no way to recover from this. You jump ship, get on a life raft, and move to another, and get on another boat.
No, to your point, to the metaphor is, and Lou says 16 wonderful years, by the way.
Amen.
Lou, cheers, brother. No, to the metaphor, and then I think we are at that point. We need to do the closing remarks here. But yeah, to that metaphor is that the first time you hit rocky waters, right? And your idea is to bail. All right, take the life preserver. You're jumping off the ship in rocky waters. You have a very low chance of survival. You hope that when you jump into it, you can get into some clearer seas. You can get picked up by another boat that's got another path. But chances are, if you keep jumping over the next boat in the same area, you're going to have rocky waters. So now you're just constantly jumping off the ship every time that the waves start forming. And then you actually can produce a mentality there, is that now, and again, I'm going to take this metaphor to the ground here, to the bottom of the ocean.
You're gonna run aground?
No, but every time it's you can train yourself that bad experience will build up. So now it's like you're in the middle of a storm, right? And that's when you want to jump out of it, because you don't want to go to the bottom. So now as you're jumping out, I got better chances on my own. I can just float to wherever, and hopefully someone will pick me up. And then all of a sudden it'll transition to a point where it's like, now it's truly the first sign of a problem. Now you're actually building it up. Like, that cloud over there doesn't look good. I'm out. Now you're foreseeing, you're projecting your own future there. That it's like, well, I had a bad experience with this. Now, with this job that built up to this point. Now I can see the writing on the wall in your mind. I can see the writing on the wall in this career, in this job, in this relationship. It's like, oh, now I'm triggered. I got to get out. Now I'm done. You will almost, you will sabotage yourself to a point that you are ahead of the game in your mind, that you're protecting yourself. Again, fine line you're walking here is that I'm not saying that you always have to just look after yourself. But again, it goes back. You have to combine that thought, and also hopefully you have someone else on that boat that's like, hang on, don't jump ship yet. We're doing fine. And this is why we see that cloud, but now we have the experience in that relationship, or you've had relationships, each of you, you've had jobs, the employer. You talk about that, Nate, that they had multiple people in the position above you. If there's any effort to learn from those experiences on both sides of the I don't want to say relationship, but of that experience, or the goal is that you realize on both sides that there will be those trials and tribulations that you want to work past. But go back to the business world, if the employer fires someone at the first sign, where they see this trait that they had a bad experience with a previous employee, or an employee sees an employer that I had a bad experience with that employer, and now I'm already seeing it with my new one, that this could go down that route, I'm out. You have a very, again, short-lived life in between these switches, and there's no long-term opportunity for happiness and fulfillment. Again, Josh, 16 wonderful years. If you jump ship the first fight you guys had, there is a good chance you would be happy with someone else, or there's a good chance that you'd be jumping ship every chance you had. And in the last 16 years, you'd have 16 or 25 relationships, right? It's because you have enough self-respect for yourself and for the other person involved, and you communicate that you get through it together. Same thing with an employer. Business shouldn't have as much emotion, clearly. Sometimes it does. Nate, you're saying loyalty to a fault, but it does have to be reciprocated on the respect for both sides of the equation. And a big part of that is you respecting yourself, so that hopefully you are your best self, so that if you're doing everything you can, then the other party has a chance to reciprocate. And now you're getting to that point where I go back to my initial statement, the intro, where are you doing what it is that is enough? Are you doing enough? When enough is enough? Am I doing enough for what the goal is here on my side, as opposed to just looking at and projecting the other party in there, and they're saying their side of it, you don't communicate, and now you're like, all right, now I got to get to when is my jumping off point? I'm not being treated right. I'm not doing this. Well, did you say anything about it? Are you doing your side of it? Or are you going to look back at that with what you were saying, with the regret of opportunity for bettering things, like you were saying, Josh, but on the other side, well, I look back at that and it's like, things could have been different if I would have done better, because I just holed up and I got to the point where I'm like, well, now it's on you. Usually it's going to be too late if you didn't communicate that.
Yeah.
My closing remarks. Go ahead, guys.
Is that your closing remarks, or are you going
Sure.
to go after us?
No, that's my closing remarks, because if I do my closing remarks, I've learned this a long time ago on this podcast, that you guys do your closing remarks and I do mine, and then everyone else interjects. So I just had my point.
I've learned from doing this long enough with you. I've learned that when you start doing your closing remarks, I no longer interject.
I just did. Josh, how about you? Closing remarks.
Yeah.
Episode 208.
208.
Thank you for the Montecristo Espadas.
Year 4.
Year 4.
Learn from your experiences, right? Better your processes. I think that it's uber important to communicate, right? Loyalty for me is something that I look through a leadership lens, and that I have, and I put a lot of I don't want to say faith in, but that I hedge my bets, and I give a lot of loyalty, I give a lot of effort, and through that leadership lens, it's boded me well in the past, and I've learned from my experiences and been able to better my processes, and it's boded me well, and hopefully we'll continue to do that. Enough is never enough for me.
Because you're holding on to that one.
Because
love it.
The leadership lens that I focus everything through is that there's always more to give, right? The risk versus reward equation is always taken into factor, but I go back to the experiences that I've learned from, and better my processes and such to make myself a better employee, to make myself a better person, and always learn to give more, whether that be a relationship or whether that be an employee. And I'm always trying to add value. That's my MO, to any position that I'm in, always add value to that position, and to look what the possibilities are in the future.
I think this is
That's good.
I think this is the first episode Josh has been on where he didn't mention board of directors.
You've said it a couple times.
I have.
There was that opportunity, but I let it pass.
It's on the board. You've said it a couple times.
But I think specifically it's when Josh mentions it. I just didn't have enough room to write it.
You got to focus. Go ahead.
There it is.
Why don't you focus on your closing remarks there,
Yeah.
Nate?
I just lit up a Montecristo 1935, which is my absolute favorite cigar.
Number 2 cigar of the year
Number
for
2.
Cigar Aficionado.
Number 1 in my heart.
Amen.
So when talking about when enough is enough, one of the things that popped in my mind late in this discussion, what's worth giving up on versus what's worth fighting for.
It's a good way to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that is something that, whether it be personal relationships or professional relationships, that's a conversation we all have to have with ourselves. Going back to when I said it's a return on investment, because there are some people that will absolutely work themselves to the bone on a personal relationship that is not healthy for themselves, and or even a professional relationship that is not in their best interest, but they have that loyalty aspect. Like they're happy to be in a relationship, or they're happy to be in a job, and so they just roll with the punches. They consistently put themselves in a position to where they're getting beat up, but the long-term side effect of that is they're not happy with either one of those situations. So every single person out there has to make that decision whether or not it's actually worth making changes and putting the effort in to stay in that situation versus what's worth actually making a change and jumping ship to another opportunity. Because sometimes sticking with a bad situation is more detrimental in the long term. Even though you may sit there and say it might be the easiest thing to do because you fear that change, it may not be in your best interest. So you have to analyze on, to what matters to you, whether or not it's worth fighting for or worth giving up on. Because I think all of us, we have that breaking point where you can only do so much. You can only put forth so much effort. And if it's not worth, like, if the other party is not reciprocating that, and they don't acknowledge that effort and because they have to make that situation worth it as well for you.
Mhm.
Like, you can do as much as you want to, but they have to do what they can to keep you as well. And so you just have to make a decision on your own, whatever your metrics are, whether or not it's worth staying in that situation because it's going to get better, or, what do you have to do? It may be on you to make it a better situation. It may be on the other party. You can do everything you can, but if that other party is not going to help make it a better situation for you, that's a one-sided relationship.
Mhm.
And one-sided relationships typically don't work out, whether it's personal or professional. And the best case scenario is you're in a situation where both parties are working for a better outcome and both benefit from the situation and from the work being put in.
Yeah, that's that reciprocating side of it, right? So if you find yourself in that situation where you're starting to question, when enough is enough, first and foremost, I do have to advise or encourage everyone to look inward. And again, from the intro, is what you're putting out there, what you're putting forth, is that enough in your mind? If it is, then you won't look back on any situation necessarily with regret, because you know that you've done everything that you can. But you really have to start with yourself in that situation. Blame yourself first and make sure that you're doing everything you can in that situation, that you have put everything you can into it. And sometimes you might catch yourself that you actually may be part of the reason that things aren't going that way in that job, in that relationship.
Yeah.
It could be your fault. Now, if you've
It's a
addressed
tough pill
that,
to swallow.
it is. If you've addressed that and maybe you've corrected your side of it and you've communicated that side of it, if you've done everything you can internally, you've bettered yourself, you've communicated better, you've done everything you can to that job you're in, that relationship you're in, whatever it might be, and you can't do anything more, and you're still unhappy on your side of it, well, now's the chance to maybe look at it as like, maybe I'm in the wrong circumstances. I'm in the wrong job. I'm in the wrong company. I've reached the limit of this relationship, professionally, personally, whatever it might be. I've done everything I can. I need to look elsewhere. We have a finite number of time on, years and days on this earth. And I implore all of you guys to do the best you can. Do not take the easy way. We're talking about Adam's comment there. It's like, it's not necessarily the easy way, because that is a short-term happiness. It's a short-term fulfillment. But for the long run, it does start with yourself first, and therefore anyone or any job or anything, any situation, if you are the truest to yourself first, now you don't have the regret that Josh was, saying that you might run into if you don't take that opportunity. Don't be loyal to a fault. Be loyal. But if it's not reciprocated, then what are you being loyal to? I really think that I enjoyed this conversation. I enjoyed the cigars early on in part one. The Montecristo Espada Signature. We're smoking the Espada by Montecristo right now. Starlight, guys, pick up the bottles when you see them out there. This conversation, I love it. Josh, love having you on. Guys in the audience, both live in the garage and also on Facebook and also YouTube. You guys make this podcast keep working, and I learn every week, and I appreciate that. And I really enjoy this conversation, and I thank you guys very much. Cheers. Happy
Cheers.
Whiskey Wednesday. Look forward to having you back on, Josh. Nate, see you next week on Bourbon BS Podcast. Guys, have a great week.
I knew you were going to have more to say.